Good evening, everybody. We're going to get started. You guys ready? Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Finance Committee public hearing and meeting of today, Wednesday, March 25th, 2026. If you can start by all standing, if you're able to, for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. I'm sorry for the delay in getting started. I was away for a couple of days doing MCAS testing, so I had a couple of things to get organized. We are getting copies for the members of the committee and a couple of extra for the public on the whole school budget, so that not only did I just email it to you, the corrected one that had all the pages, not just the odd ones. We'll have copies in front of us to ask questions about, and when we get to there, I would encourage you ask questions about anything in the budget. Take the time to learn how their budget works, just like we've done for the police and the fire and everything else. All right, and if you have other questions that come up after tonight, we can arrange to get them answered. Our first item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from the Finance Committee's meetings of last week, March 18th and 19th. So I did send out the 18th with the agenda on Monday, and I sent out the 19th, I think, was it either last night or today? Last night, thank you, when I got them. So if we have do we have a motion for the minute? Do we want to talk about the minutes of March 18th before we make a motion? Anybody have any questions, comments, complaints, corrections? All right. Could I get a motion to recommend approval of those minutes?
Sorry. I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting for March 18th, 2026.
Second.
All right, so the motion was made by Arnie and seconded by Jonna to approve the minutes as submitted for the March 18th meeting. All those in favor, raise your hands and say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? One. Okay, so that's a vote. The minutes for Thursday, March 19th. Any questions, comments, corrections? All right.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of March 19th.
So Becca's made a motion. Do I have a second? Second by Laura to approve the minutes of the meeting of Thursday, March 19th. All those in favor of that motion say aye and raise your hands. Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? One. Thank you. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 14. Thank you. So now everybody knows I can count to at least maybe 12 out of the 14. All right. We'll skip over number 4. Can we go to article number 5 on the agenda? We need motions to continue the public hearings.
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
I move that we open the public hearings for the May 4th annual town meeting and the May 4th special town meeting.
All right, so Joel's made the motion to open the public hearings for both the May 4th annual and special town meetings. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Jonna. All right, all those in favor, say aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? I would hope nobody would feel the need to abstain on that, but All right, so tonight, our first item is, again, under Article 12, the operating budget is the Stoughton School Department, and the articles on tonight are mostly the Stoughton School Department. I did add Article 26 about the Dennison's Field renovation, just because somebody had a question about it and wanted to make, somebody from the schools just wanted to make a comment, so if it comes up, it comes up. We don't need to hear another presentation on the proposed renovations. And I see we have, if you want to introduce yourselves, Dr. Byetta, and we are getting copies of the school budget so that we can all look at it as well. But please feel free to ask questions in detail, all right? We don't have to just, but
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Finance Committee. To my left is the Chair of the School Committee, Christine Shannon, and to her left is the Superintendent-elect, Julie Miller, who's currently serving also as the principal of Stoughton High School. And at this time, I'll turn it over to the Chair for some comments.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to present the FY27 Stoughton Public Schools budget. I'd like to start by highlighting a few areas of progress this year, then briefly frame the context and priorities that are shaping this budget. This has been a strong year for the district in several important ways. We've had one of our most successful hiring seasons in recent years. For the first time in a long time, Stoughton High School opened fully staffed, and the middle school had only one vacancy. That level of stability directly impacts classroom quality and student experience. We've also seen steady academic and engagement progress. The district continues to make progress toward the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education's accountability targets, and we've seen a reduction in chronic absenteeism, which is critical to improving student outcomes. We are advancing operational and long-term sustainability efforts, including a nearly $2.7 million state grant to improve energy systems at the Wilkins, launching a climate action initiative that is both environmentally responsible and cost-conscious over time. And importantly, we continue to build strong school culture and community engagement, from hosting 20 high school marching bands at the U.S. Band State Championships at the high school to strong participation over student activities. This year, the school committee is also focused on strengthening how we operate. We adopted our first formal operating norms, reinforcing accountability, collaboration, and a clear focus on student outcomes. We completed the superintendent evaluation that Dr. Byetta rated proficient, reflecting steady and effective leadership. We also are preparing for a smooth leadership transition, ensuring continuity and stability for the district. Our FY 2027 budget is grounded in the district's triennial plan and vision of the graduate, which focus on long-term student success. Key priorities include strengthening instruction through a district-wide coaching model, implementing the vision of a graduate, ensuring students develop critical thinking, communication, and real-world skills, expanding support for multilingual learners, including more consistent systems and family supports, and restructuring special education services to improve quality and reduce costly out-of-district placements. These are not new initiatives layered on top. They are targeted strategies to improve outcomes and use resources more effectively over time. At the same time, we need to be clear about our financial reality. This budget is being developed after multiple years of level service funding that has not kept pace with rising transportation costs, increasing out-of-district tuitions, growing enrollment in high-needs populations, and inflation across all areas. These pressures have required difficult decisions, including staffing adjustments and limits on services, even as student needs continue to grow. It also necessitates increasing activity and service fees for families already strapped in this tight economy. Each year that funding does not fully keep pace compounds these challenges and makes it harder to maintain the level of services that our students need and deserve. Despite these pressures, the school committee has remained focused on responsible stewardship. We are aligning resources directly to student needs. We are leveraging state funding, including Chapter 70 funds. We are planning for long-term efficiencies, including through the new elementary school project and future redistricting, and making strategic decisions that reduce future costs, such as strengthening in-district special education services. We are being deliberate, disciplined, and forward-looking in how we manage resources. In closing, this budget reflects a careful balance, maintaining strong educational programs, addressing growing student needs, and managing real and ongoing fiscal concerns and constraints. We remain committed to working collaboratively with the Select Board, the Finance Committee, and Town Meeting to ensure that every dollar is used effectively and that every student in Stoughton has access to the opportunities and supports they need to succeed. At this point, I'll turn it over to Dr. Baeta to walk through the broader state context and the details of the FY27 budget.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
So to the members of the committee, I do have some prepared comments, and then I'll get into dive into some of the other information that I've been asked to make sure that we have, and make sure that you also have the full budget booklet that I'll send to the chair. I want to thank Carolyn, the FinCom members that are here this evening, and my colleagues and the general public, and those across the town side of government that we work with on a regular basis. There's no sugarcoating this for the school department this year. This is a challenging budget cycle. Stoughton, like most districts in the Commonwealth, is projected to receive the minimum amount of Student Opportunity Act funding, which is part of the state's Chapter 70 funding for public education. That is $75 per student only. This has caused a significant budget shortfall we are working to address and will address. So how did we get here? A significant portion of funding for the school budget comes from state aid. We all know that. The governor's proposed budget for the next fiscal year saw a modest increase in funding for K-12 public education statewide. I want to repeat that again, a modest increase. FY27 is the final year of the 6th year of the Student Opportunity Act, or the SOA, phase-in. We do not know what the future looks like. FY27 Chapter 70 goes up by $242 million, or 3.3% statewide, to $7.6 billion as a state, which is 1/8 of the total state budget, a pretty significant number. However, this is at the lower end of the SOA era increases for not only Stoughton, but for 270 districts throughout the Commonwealth. It is, in fact, the second lowest amount during the 6 years of the SOA. That can be seen in charts that go back all the way, for us, to 2011. In 2011 was the last year that we received such a low amount of money, or 16 fiscal years ago. Under SOA, the minimum aid per student is set at $75. 6 out of every 7 districts in the Commonwealth, or 270, as I stated earlier, of the 319 districts, including Stoughton, are projected to receive just the minimum SOA increase. Tell me, how is this formula working for Stoughton and 270 other communities? It's not. Here is our per student SOA during the time as I came in and since I've been here. In FY23, we've received $388 per student. In FY24, my first year here, $1,339 per student. In FY25, $730 per student. In FY26, last year, the current year we're in, 533 students. And your projection for next year is $75, or a whopping $274,200 from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. That is our number of increase. The needs of our students have grown, expenses are up, inflation is impacting the district across the board as it is everywhere else. And we have contract obligations, which, by the way, will be signed, sealed, and delivered sometime this month and next month with both Unit A, the STA teachers, and Unit B, the administrators. We're very happy to announce that as the school committee and the STA comes to agreement over the next 30 days. So despite these growing challenges, why has SOA funding gone down? So this is where it gets a little nasty. The culprit is this unexpectedly large decline in the number of public school children attending our schools. We have a decline of 15,000 students in the Commonwealth. I'll repeat that again, 15,000 students, or approximately 1.6% decrease. 3/4 of districts have fewer students this year than last, hence the reason why you see 270 districts receiving less funding, because it's grounded on enrollment. These numbers are misleading, though. I'm going to repeat that again. These numbers are misleading. This includes the students who were housed in hotels and shelters in the Commonwealth, in the thousands, including 170 here in Stoughton during a 2-year period. We did the right thing, not only as a school district, but as a town, and supported these students and educated them, fed them, housed them, provided clothing for them, supported them. But now these students have all left. 100% of them have left. They were forced to leave, again, by state government in the same way that they were forced to come in. And we are penalized for this declining enrollment because the foundation budget is grounded on enrollment. What are the next steps? We continue to explore ways to confront the budget shortfall, and unfortunately this includes potential cuts to staffing, something that is not part of Stoughton's history. The House and Senate will build upon the governor's recommended budget, and maybe there'll be some further funds down the road at some point. It's my hope that both the House and the Senate do increase to $75 per student, but those funds may not be available until well after town meeting and into the fall, all dependent. I have spoken to our town manager about, and he's agreed, and he's here tonight, he can note this, that we need to get to the governor's office and really discuss that the communities that are impacted by having forced shelter situations, now having it used against us as part of enrollment, is not fair or just, or in my mind, even ethical, and that a one-time pothole funding source should be available to those communities that are impacted, such as Stoughton. I don't think it's going to happen, but it's worth a try. As for the details of our FY27 budget, it's bleak at best, as we said earlier, but I always think from the positive. The school committee requested an overall budget increase of 8.8% to meet our level of services and those mandates within special education specifically. Our shortfall is grounded in approximately $3 million. From the time that we started in the budget process to now, and because of our Chapter 70 situation, that $3 million is a real number. It's a factual piece of information. Because if you go back to those numbers I recalled earlier of X number per student, we were receiving in the millions of dollars, and now we're receiving $272,000. Stoughton does its best utilizing its Chapter 70 to make sure that we are providing 100% of those funds towards our education system. And in my time here, that's what's happened, and we thank both the town and town meeting for that. We're also trying to provide you with the most clear-cut and factually based budget grounded on school-level line items. This is the second year of a school line item budget representing all 8 of our buildings and then all of the other major initiatives, departments within the school budget. The other major issue is special education. And I'd like to take a little bit of time to remind all of us that these students are all of our students. But when we talk about special education, it becomes a little controversial for some. That is not my intent tonight, so I want to make sure that we're clear. I want to make sure, however, that we know that there's a significant cost. Our current percentage of students with disabilities is just under 22%. It's up 2% in one fiscal year and over the last 2 fiscal years, and an increase in out-of-district placement in my time here, which is since 2024, of 30 students. We currently have 71 students out of district. The tuition costs alone for these students average from a low of $64,000 to a high of $300,000 per student, not including another $20,000 to $70,000 each for transportation. Enrollment overall is projected to increase next year by 24 students. That's a good thing in terms of the actual Chapter 70. Our school projections include the Jones at 122 students, which will be a flat number, the Dar at 390, the Gibbons at 389, the Hanson at 277, the South at 263, the Wilkins at 335, OMS at 771, and SHS projected to be roughly at 1,028, but we really don't know what the outcome of the lottery system for Southeastern means to Stoughton, and or if more students decide to go to Southeastern this year. So again, that's a projection. Although we continue to add in-district specialized programs, we have, at a very high rate, we have a potential of outpacing. We're adding 2 more programs next year. However, we have a space issue in our buildings as we are providing these services in district. Yet we are currently working on a 2-year plan for improving our services, student outcomes, and yes, cost savings in special education. The superintendent-elect will be leading this initiative as part of her first budget in FY28 as part of an internal report that we're currently working on, which will then become public once we're ready to release it and we have actual factual information. Lastly, our budget reflects the following staff adds. 3 special education service teachers, and 1 paraprofessional for next year as part of mandates. There are no other additional at this time. We will make the cuts that are based on enrollment where appropriate, and we will consider also increasing fees, including adding new fees in areas that we don't have fees. Currently, we have 9.8 or 10 bodies, 9.8 FTEs that are retiring, although we anticipate that as many as 6.8 of those must be filled based on them being in certain areas, i.e. school psychologist, as an example. If we must cut positions, we will do so utilizing the following process. 1, non-direct student service providers. 2, non-mandated positions. And 3, classroom positions. I want to be very, very clear in my history as a superintendent. The budget is the budget, the numbers are the numbers. I think we have to be very careful about making sure that the service delivery of our town is a priority, including those of the school, and I say that as your superintendent and not as a taxpayer. It is important for me to make sure that as superintendent that I provide you with the facts and information and that we are part of the process of getting a balanced budget to town meeting in the best interest that we can, and then allowing for that process to take place. I'd also like to, and I'll again make sure that you have this, why the numbers are where they are. And I'd like to try to give the basics of what is a foundation budget and what does it mean to have a foundation budget, because we use that word a lot in education. The foundation budget is grounded on placing students, your enrollment, whatever that is as projected based on October 1 from this year, into one of 11 categories, beginning in preschool, going all the way through high school and vocational, which for us is 0, and then adding special ed in district and all the way through low income. So students are counted within those categories, which then gives you a number. That number for Stoughton this year as a foundation per pupil is $17,536. That is our foundation number. So as an example, if you have a foundation enrollment of full-day kindergarten like we do with 280 students, there's a number that's established for each of those students in the 11 categories as a set number. So 137,000 is for administration, or 1.1 million is for classroom teachers, and so on and so forth. That's how it's calculated. It's a foundation of how many bodies do you have and where do they belong, and that gives you the bottom number. That is what foundation is. Added to that is the category which became a foundation of, that became the key of the Student Opportunity Act, which is this whole area around low income, if you remember. And they created 12 different categories or groups, and your percentage of students that are considered, quote, low income fit into those categories. So for us, the number is 48.02% of our students are in that, quote, group. That group number is 9 for us. Group 9 is anything between 48% and 53.99%. So you get that, quote, added benefit, if you will, as part of the whole process. So that's one part. The second part that I wanted to make sure that the committee understood is, for this year's numbers, how did we get there? So when you look at FY26 and then you look at FY27, in the enrollment number for the current year, which would have been October of the prior year of 25, 3,860 students. That included at that time the second year of the students that were here by October 1st, who were shelter students moving into the Chapter 70 foundation budget. So they went from being $105 per student to moving into the foundation budget. They were considered, quote, regular students, if you will, for lack of a better word. This year, we're down 204 students, and that is the reason why you see the impact of the foundation budget. It's a negative 5.28%. So we see a decline in the foundation budget from the prior year of $1.3 million. To be exact, it's $1,299,561. That is the big whopper that comes against us. The required district contribution is up $2.1 million, and the Chapter 70 aid is that $75 per student, or the $274,200. So our required net school spending is $2.4 million. That is the required. don't have to necessarily go above that. The target aid share drops this year to 39% from 42%. That's a pretty significant number as well. But the Chapter 70 percentage of the foundation slightly goes up about 1.5%. I know those are just numbers, but the fact of the matter is it tells you the story around enrollment as the key to your Chapter 70 funding, and in this case also the SOA. I'll stop there to begin the process of taking a look at the line item and questions that you may have.
Thank you. I just, if everybody, just for the committee to know, if you look at the summary sheet of the school budget, and then, I mean, there's obviously a deficit, which we will address, some of it will be addressed by the school committee, and we will address it, when we come time to balance all the budgets after we've heard all the departments. All right, so I can say with really good certainty that they will not be getting an 8.66% increase, and I think everybody understands that. I do think it's important for a lot of people here who don't have much experience with the school budget or budgets in general, the town budgets in general, that they're set up differently than the municipal department budgets we've been looking at, because the state requires them to be set up differently. They've done a school line budget this year, which I appreciate myself, because I like to see what's going on by each school level. I want to know how many teachers are at each building and what we're paying for. So just keep in mind that, try to, ask questions to understand, and realize that, we will have to make some decisions about how we balance the budget, because we do need to present a balanced budget. And, ideally, we will get something that everyone can live with. And we will be using, unless something at the legislature happens between now and within the next 10 days to 2 weeks, we will be using all the numbers that we have, that we got at the revenue sheet at the beginning of this process with House 1. All right, because those are the best numbers that we have. I also want to make clear to anyone here, tonight we're talking about students. Whatever questions you want to ask, please use respectful language, or any questions that do not use respectful language will be ruled out of order immediately and will not be answered. All right, no matter what you think, all of our students deserve respect, and I just giving it right now a heads up. All right. Well, it's for me as the chair. Yes. All right. And I will generally ask if there's, I will generally say that word, please use a different language, please use a different word, please refrain, and, they're all students. I'm the Ministry of Special Language for tonight, yes, I guess that's my new name. I always would like to be called that, but we will go on from that. Thank you. All right, Becca, you have a question.
Hi, thank you. I have two questions, and it goes specifically, they're budget questions. So talking about foundation, I just want to make sure that I have a really good understanding of what foundation means, because I feel like as long as I've been doing this, I still don't 100% get it. So I'm going to just take a round number, $17,500, right? Let's just say, so the foundation cost per student is $17,500 per student. One of the things you said for Chapter 70 is, first of all, SOA, Chapter 70, different things or same things?
So it's a great question. So you have a basic foundation of Chapter 7. The Student Opportunity Act takes into account those special populations as a way to get to a number that's, quote, fair across the board for districts. So for 4 years, Stoughton was receiving, grounded on its specialized populations as part of SOA, what it should have been receiving prior to SOA.
So to rephrase that, so if, I just want to make sure that, like, I get this, because I feel like this is where it gets confusing. $17,500 is what it costs. Let's just say that's what it costs to educate every kid, right? Every kid is $17,500. The state was giving us for SOA 388, then 1379, then 730, then 530. And so this year they're giving us $75 per student. That is separate from the Chapter 70 money that they're giving us.
It is a combination of both because it becomes what's called net school spending.
Okay.
So what happens is your foundation formula is literally the foundation, like your home. It's a foundation. And then everything else gets put on top of it, just like you would on your house. The frame, the first floor, second floor, so on and so forth. It's that basic of a process. The issue with the foundation budget is that it's very driven around a formula that provides for students to be in their age group, preschool, elementary, middle, high school, vocational, special education, ELL, low income, and so on. And for each of those is an expenditure that goes to the 11 categories on the left side. I will send this to you so that you have an actual physical, you can actually see it. And then from there, you get your foundation budget. What the SOA tried to do is to reestablish for communities that weren't getting their fair share, and Stoughton was one of them. I want to repeat that. Stoughton was one of them. In FY24, you received the 25th largest increase in the entire state as a per pupil, as a SOA total of your funding. So think of it as you have your foundation, and then you have, for lack of a better word, everything else that comes with it, which gives you your bottom number.
We have our foundation. We have our Chapter 70. Looking at the House 1 budget, there's also unrestricted general government aid. In addition, it looks like it's an addition. I'm looking at the House 1 budget on the government's website. So there's Chapter 70 money, and then there's unrestricted general government aid. Does that also go to the schools?
No.
Okay, so that's separate. Okay. So then what we need to, that was the second question. So the $17,500 per student cost, I know that they say revenue, but it's cost. And it might be that kindergartners, it's an aggregate, right? So kindergartners might be only $10,000 and high schoolers might be 20, so the middle is 15. And so between the Chapter 70 money that we get from the state and between what the town puts in, that is what we're trying to get to for each student, and that is the $17,500, or for the total budget.
Right, so when you look at the total foundation budget, as per the Commonwealth for Stoughton, the total is $64,112,450.
Yep.
You're dividing that by your number of students based upon all the categories, and I'll give you an example. Your English learners in 6 to 8, grade 6 to 8, so that's OMS, English learners, 68 students is a total foundation of $234,000 versus your English learners at the high school are 285 versus your low income, that would be 1,726 students of the 3,800 are considered low income, or that 48% number, that's $14.2 million. So when you add across the different student categories with all of the different areas, 11 different areas of the foundation, that gives you that 64 million, and then that's divided by your total number of students, and that gets you to your, quote, 17.5.
Thank you.
Okay.
I mean, this is the way I kind of understand. There's always been a formula for Chapter 70 ever since the 90s. The formulas change periodically depending upon the legislature and what they enact. The most recent one, I believe, was the SOA, which adjusted the formula to account for certain factors like, increased populations of low-income students, factors which benefited Stoughton, but that's what the current formula is. Am I explaining that correctly?
That's correct.
Okay. So basically, SOA, and for our purposes, SOA and Chapter 70 are the same thing.
Yeah, the problem with the SOA discussion is that and I'll give you an example. I came from a community that for 10 years received anywhere between $30 and $90 every year for 10 years. Every year. We never got more than that. So literally $68,000, $64,000, because we were a community of about 2,200 kids. And yet we still had to file this SOA. So this SOA is literally Mr. Ford in the back as the assistant superintendent. He actually as part of creating it. We have to file so how are you going to spend this extra, quote, extra money? So this year, our SOA is going to ask, so how are you spending $272,000 more than you got last year? While we're making budget cuts, right? It's a little bit of a yin and a yang, if you know what I mean. So the idea is that you're trying to show the state that you're using that money for a certain X. So in my last district, just because it's simpler, if I got $68,000 more, I would say, well, special ed just told me we needed another special ed teacher to meet a mandate, so guess what? SOA money is going towards special education. That's what we would do. In Stoughton, we've been luckier through the years to have more funding than that and be able to actually create some plans to try to address goals going forward through our triennial plan, through staffing and supports, through student needs, and so on and so forth. So we've, quote, earmarked those plans and those funds to try to support those very initiatives that we said we were going to do.
Okay. The net school spending figure, what is that budget? Because as I understand it, we cannot go below that budget without not being able to set our tax rate and having state money withheld. So there's a minimum that we have to, and what is that number?
The net school spending requirement for the town of Stoughton is a total of $67,824,140.
Okay.
It's up 2.4 from last year. That is the required net school spending, Chapter 70 summary as published by the Department of Elementary and Education in January.
We can't pass a budget that's lower than that.
In general, that the regulation is that would cause some friction between the town and DOR.
Right. So, sure.
So that 67 million, though, is based on the number of students that
It's based on the enrollment number that we provided the state on October 1st.
okay. So
So it includes it's part of the decline. So it's up because of the formula, even though we have, quote, 200 less students.
okay, and I think the question that I will ask it's the most basic question, and forgive me if the answer is somewhere hidden in the numbers and everything that I didn't have time to write down. But I think the question that a lot of people have is, so much of this is based in enrollment. And we have already mentioned that enrollment was higher because of the migrant families, sanctuary state. So things went up because enrollment went up, and there were additional needs, I'm assuming, for students that are English as a second language and, a multitude of things. So those students are no longer in the town. And so then enrollment, you would think, would not be going up as much as if that were kind of a constant influx of students. So if the number of students has gone down because of that, and assuming not gone up as much based on normal enrollment, why is there such a big deficit now if the budget is based on enrollment?
Because your demographic shift continues to take place within the students that move into this town or live in this town.
So let's break that down into regular language.
So let's break that down.
Yeah.
So our student population as coming into the town continuously is within two large categories, special education and ELL. Those are the two major groups that we see coming in. So the idea that you lost, let's just say in second grade, 12 students who were migrant students, that doesn't necessarily mean that 6 other students didn't come in during the summertime and are now enrolled and are getting ELL services or special education services. So this past summer, just in the summer, we took in 54 students who had IEPs, and by that I mean they moved into town. About 25% of the enrollment were students on an IEP. And then since then, we've had 9 more students who are just out of district placements during that year. And by the way, since October 1st, we've had just under 4 students, I'll just use that number, less than 5, who are students that are not even accounted for in this budget because they've been move-its after our budget was, after the Chapter 70 was already accounted for. So those will be a cost share with the town, and then on July 1st, they become ours.
So it's not as straightforward as
Yeah,
we
it's-
had more kids come in, we scaled up our budget for those additional children. Those children went away, wherever they went, and then the costs are no longer needed.
Right. So, and a point would be, when, if you remember 2 years ago, when the shelter students first came in, it was $105 per student. There was no Chapter 70 funds at the time. Then the state said, if the students are coming in prior to October 1st, we're going to capture them for the following year in your Chapter 70. And they did that for 2 consecutive years. So if I had a student that moved in on December 22nd, perfect example, we had 21 students, don't quote me on 21, somewhere around 21 students who moved in from another shelter on December 22nd. We said, please don't do that. It's right before the holidays, so they moved in January. Those students were not accounted for in that year's Chapter 70 because they came in after October 1st. So those students, we had to provide, we received money, and if you remember, we were almost 6 months behind in getting funds. We had to use our own budget to pay our bills, and then we're backfilled. This particular fiscal year that we're in, we're using the last $500,000, $400 and something thousand of our 105 that we received from chapters, from the shelter situation to offset our operating budget. Because remember, our operating budget for this year was also in the negative by $1.3 million. And then since then, we've actually also had to use our circuit breaker funds more so than we've used in the past. So when you have declining enrollment, that doesn't mean that there hasn't been a shift in the population of students. And at the same time, students are moving to a different school or a different grade. So the impact, I'll give you an example. We have more than likely a shift this year in enrollment in a certain grade level where I can absorb a 1.0 cut in a teaching position because enrollment is down. Right now, I know that. Now, that can completely change in September over the summer, but I have to base it on what I have for information now. So I can say, okay, I can cut as an example, this is only an example, I can cut a second grade position at such and such a school because enrollment at that building is down, where the class sizes for next year would be projected to be at 14 kids, and I'm going to cut a position and have the class sizes be at 18 kids. That's what we constantly have to do within our working budget, as an example. Now, what happens if 60 kids register across the district in the elementary grades, and all of a sudden our projected number for enrollment in grade 2 was 18, and we had a bucket load of second graders that moved into town? What we try to do is figure out, is there savings somewhere else to create a position over the summer, or we just go with it? The Gibbon School this year has actually been one of our schools that's taken a little bit of a hit on class size at the elementary level, where we have some areas where we're at 16, 17, 18, and they're at 22. And that's because of what happened in the summer months, as an example. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. But just one last question. What did you say the delta in enrollment was between 2026 and 2025?
204. That's the formula that's noted as reported on October 1st. Now, that number is already shifted to be less than that, but that is what the foundation budget is grounded on. It's grounded on what we report on October 1st as by state mandate.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
I have a question, and then I know there are a couple of questions over here. Do you have projected enrollments for do you have projected enrollments for the next couple of years?
Yeah, we have our NESDEC report. I'll file that with you as part of the packet as well. Our NESDEC report continues to show that we are going to be growing. In terms of our biggest issue that we're going to have, it's going to be at the secondary level, right around 2032, 2033, where the high school could have in excess of 1,300 students. That's a bubble that's going to go through. Now, the other part is we continue to be small, but or not a lot, but enough. We continue to have buildings going up in town that potentially are residential. That's a good thing, I guess, but we don't know what that has as an impact to the student population. We have at least 3 or 4 different places that are currently being
So
worked on.
roughly, like when you talk about increasing, are you talking about big increasing? I'm just trying to get an idea of
Sure,
like,
so-
what's a like this year crisis versus an ongoing
Yeah, so as a,
trend?
just if you give me 1 second. So right now, the projected enrollment through our third-party source, NESDEC, which has been the one that you've received, is that our numbers will be going up into the 3,800s in fiscal 33, 34, and 35. And the impact of that is predominantly seen at the secondary level, where we have class sizes that, or graduating class sizes that are roughly just under 300 students,
All
which
right,
is
so-
about 30 to 40 more students than we have now.
So like right now, over the next, like, let's say 4 years or so, until we get to, we are seeing like a slight enrollment of a few students, but not like, not a significant,
Right,
mean-
so the projection for 26, 27, our internal projections is 24. NASDAQ's projection is an additional 56. We're saying 24, they're saying 56. We're going to be probably in that ballpark. Following year, 19. Year after that, they're saying a -5. That could go either way because it's such a small number. Then they're seeing increases of 40, 36, 24, 29, 25. And then we see a negative of 42 within that whole.
as a bubble graduates.
Exactly. And we don't know where that younger group is coming in. And don't forget that approximately 10 to 12% of our students are in and out.
Right,
It's called the churn.
right. So, roughly going forward over the next 3 or 4 years, we can expect slightly more students than what we have now?
I would anticipate that to be true, yes.
Okay. Jonna, then Arnie, and then Ben, and then I can't remember beyond that. Then Dennis, all right, you go right in order, I can do that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, I have 2 questions. Well, one is a comment. I really appreciated watching the school committee budget meeting and seeing one of the members being adept enough to not want to take the budget deficit money out of the free cash. I mean, we've already gone down that road before, and it's like an alcoholic, in my estimation. It's analogous to celebrating their 5-year sobriety by going out for a drink. I'm sorry, I just thought that was incredible that more people didn't see it that way, but I really appreciated what that one person had pointed out. And as for my question, it isn't adding up in my head. It doesn't make sense. If there's less illegal families, children in the school system, why are we not seeing less less teachers would make a big difference. There would be less need to have more.
I apologize. The comment and the question that you're coming up with is using inappropriate language. If you would like to use there are less migrant families, students, or less shelter students in the district, then why you could ask that question, and that would be acceptable to the chair. How is that inappropriate? They're illegal. Excuse me. As I have said previously, no people are illegal. We will use the. You're wrong. We need.
Point of personal
Excuse
privilege.
me.
Point of personal privilege.
Yes, Cynthia.
Madam Chair, you and I are both chairs of standing committees. There's a law in this state for the conduct of these meetings. No one may speak without your recognition. A person who continues to speak will be asked to leave. If they refuse to leave, the police will come and arrest them for disrupting the public meeting. There seems to be an individual in the audience who does not understand proper behavior and what is legal in the state of Massachusetts. Freedom of speech does not mean you get to open your mouth and flap your jaws whenever you feel like it. I am uncomfortable being in the same room with someone who seems to be violent.
Violent? That's,
And in this case now, threatening me. I will call the police if I have to. I will not be threatened at a public meeting. I am a town official.
How did I threaten you?
Excuse me, where this is a public hearing, there will be an appropriate time that we will allow anyone to come up and speak on comments. At that point, you can come up and say what you would like, and we will listen, and you can put your comments into the record. However, you cannot yell out things from the audience. I am generally have been like, I will, in the past and in general, I will entertain questions from the audience, and where this is a public hearing, anybody will get to ask questions after the committee members have done. However, I'm running this meeting, and I can rule a question that's out of order for any particular reason or no reason at all. Thank you. So if you could just please use shelter students, I think that would, like, we could move past this and get to your the content of your question.
I've already referred to them with the proper verbiage.
The question's out of order. We'll go on to Arnie.
Can I have a point of privilege?
Not right now.
Okay, later? Thank you.
Hi. Thank you very much for that information. I have to say, it's a lot of information to absorb. So if I'm being redundant, please accept my apologies. First of all, did I hear this right? You have a total of 3,860 students? Or did I miss,
The number that was utilized for 3860 would have been in the FY 26 budget. That was part of October 1st, so the prior year. We're down 204 students from that number.
Okay, so we're missing 204 at this point. Second is do we have a preschool classes in the Stoughton Public School System?
We are required by federal law and state law to provide special education services to students who are on an IEP in preschool. And added to that service delivery is also parents who pay for what's called peer model students. And those parents actually pay a tuition for their students to attend the preschool.
Could you define what you just...
Yes, so let's take a look at the best practice of a classroom. You might have certain students who are receiving services for special education within a model of just special education, and then you might have a separate classroom where 50% of the students are special education students and 50% of the students are what are called model students, students who are not on an IEP, whose parents want them in preschool, and they are part of that classroom, and it's paid for by the family.
Thank you. A couple more questions, if you wouldn't mind. If you're asking for an extra $3,467,000 to make up a shortfall, if you didn't get that amount of money, would you have any layoffs?
Yes.
How many?
We have to account for layoffs in two ways. Number one, we have to account for the actual body, and so for every 2 bodies that we cut, we have to cut a third body to pay for unemployment. So whatever that number would be, it would then be adding others. So let's just say it was 10, we would probably be looking at 14 to 15 layoffs. If it was 20, then you might be looking at 28 to 32. It all depends on the salary of folks. So if you have a $60,000 layoff and another $60,000 layoff, that's $120,000. It may require another layoff to offset 60% of the cost of of unemployment. Okay. Unemployment is within our line item.
And did I hear right? We're talking about getting that money from free cash?
There's been no discussion at the school committee level about free cash. The comment that was made by me and continues to be made by me is your body here, the finance committee in the town, had a plan to come off of free cash over, my understanding, a 7-year period. It was done in 1-year period, and I made the public comment that that was a concern for the school department. That was my comment, not a member of the school committee.
Is that what you intend to?
I have no intentions of going after free cash. I have no intentions of asking for cutting of the municipal budget as your superintendent. Period. End of story.
Okay, I appreciate
If there
that.
are no funds available, the philosophy of free cash is a great philosophy to have. You folks have decided as a town to take it in a certain direction. As both the superintendent and as the taxpayer, I don't agree with that philosophy. I'm just one person. I am just the superintendent. I don't have to agree with it. I don't agree with it, but I am bound by utilizing that process.
I don't know how to formulate this question, so I'll move on.
Try the best you can, and we'll figure it out, Arnie.
Where will the $3,467,000 come for? What are you expecting to get that money? Are you going to write an article for town meeting for that extra amount?
I have no intentions of filing an article or asking for free cash. That is not my intention. Last time I checked, the only body that could do that would be the legislative body, which is town meeting.
So I think what you were asking is if they don't get that, there's like a roughly $3 million whatever gap, all right? If they don't get that, right, and they just go by whatever has been allocated to make the budget balance, you're asking how they're going to make up that difference.
Yes.
Okay. So how would you
Thank
make
you
up
for my
that difference?
explanation.
All right, no, that's okay.
Yeah, so what we will do is, we currently on our expense lines have very limited ways to go, because if you recall, 2 fiscal years ago, we took our expense lines, so this would be your paper and your pencils and all of that stuff, and we brought it way down. Some of those lines you will see are like at $200. Even if I were to add them all up, it doesn't even come close in some cases to $100,000. So our intent will be to take a look at the 3 areas as I noted earlier. We will look at staffing and positions that are not related to direct services. We will look at staffing that are not mandated, and then we will look at everything else. The idea is that the least impact is in the classroom as much as possible. But when you're looking at $3 million, you're going to have some serious discussions about staffing.
I understand that. It's not easy to get to. Have we had an increase in student scores? I believe the last time I looked at it was last year, and it was for the 2024 year. The last year the MCAS was taken. Have we increased those scores over the years, and by roughly how much?
Yes and no. So remember that we are in a process right now where MCAS scores at the high school level are not even part of graduation anymore. So just a couple of years ago, our MCAS scores were important because they counted towards a student receiving a high school diploma. 2 years ago, we actually received a recognition by the Commonwealth for our improved scores at the high school as one of the highest performing high schools in the state. We currently have 2 elementary schools that are rated top 40 percentile schools nationally, and we have a high school that's rated top 40% nationally within all of the scores, not just one score. We continuously are seeing more students considering college and careers. When you look at the MCAS right now, we don't know what that future, we know that the future of that at the high school level in Stoughton is that we require it to be taken, but it is not required by state statute to be passed any longer to get your diploma. The state's going to be announcing sometime in June into the fall 7 different areas where students have to meet in order to graduate from a high school, including your local program of studies. So they're looking at things like senior project and portfolios. They're looking at financial literacy courses and a bunch of other stuff that will be published. To answer your question in the most honest way, we have seen some growth at our elementary schools in certain categories, in certain areas. But remember that in some of our cases, some of our population of students don't even take the tests. For example, depending on when a student arrives in the United States, a student may not be taking the EL test, the English test. They may be only taking the math test, as an example. Even though 60% of math is reading, the state still requires students to do so. So I would say in the next 3 to 5 years, we'll have a better understanding of what these actual scores mean in terms of improvements or not improving. We have seen growths in certain areas and flatness in other areas, to be quite honest.
I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. You mentioned charging itemized fees to make sure to fill some of this budget shortfall. Can you expand on that a little bit?
So we currently have transportation fees, $375, $375 per student, $750.
This is a recess. Get going again. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. After our brief recess, I apologize. Wow. All right. Ben was asking questions, so you can continue.
Yes, please expand on itemized fees.
So we currently have fees for school transportation for taking the yellow bus. We currently have fees for our preschool program, which would be for those families who are paying to use. And depending on the number of days, that's how they pay. And then the third item is we have our use of facilities fees. So if you use our facilities, depending on if you're a non-for-profit, for-profit, and so on and so forth, we have an hourly charge as it pertains to custodial, and we also have a fee for the actual use of the facility. The two that we currently don't have that are sometimes you see would be an activity fee or an athletic fee, and those will be further discussed in the future as part of this budget process.
Okay, thank you. Would it be possible, to use something like books or electronics or?
Illegal to do so.
Okay, illegal?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not allowed to. Matter of fact, when the one-to-one technology thing came out, we saw a lot of districts try to go that route, and the Commonwealth said, no, you can't do that. What you could charge for is insurance, if families wanted to take an insurance on the technology, but you can't make money off of that.
Okay. My next question is the number of IEP students in the district. Could you go over the trend in that over the last 5 years?
Yeah, the trend is, it's a great question. Thank you for asking that. What you see in general is a great thing, right? Medically, in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts specifically, but throughout the nation, is in the last 10 years, the survival rate for preemies has gone significantly up. Well over 93% now, and the last numbers I checked, and it could even be better than that. But there are also medical and potential issues that come with that. So what we see in our student population from a general perspective is our highest number is in 11 different areas. So we go from learning disability, specific learning disability that a student may have, may be specific. It could be health, it could be emotional. So there's 11 different categories. And within those categories, our growing number continues to be autism. And that is a national trend. That is not a Massachusetts trend. That's a national trend. Now, within that area, and all of these areas where students have an IEP or a learning challenge, we have students that are broken down into different, quote, abilities of that. So you have students that are, the words that are used are words like high functioning and low functioning. I really despise those words. But we have students who have more challenges within those spectrums and others with less challenges. So you may have a student who is actually autistic and in an AP class at the high school, and you may have a student who's autistic and needs a one-to-one paraprofessional and assistance. So it really runs the gamut of that. But that is where approximately this year, well over 21% of our students fit into that category within the different categories that we have.
Okay.
And if I could just add to that, that is actually aligned with the state trends as well. This is not a Stoughton-only issue. This is something that's happening, like you said, nationally, but a lot of school districts, most school districts in the state are also experiencing increases.
Okay, has there been any shifts or changes in diagnostic parameters for individuals with IEP programs?
What, can you explain that a little bit more?
Well, there's been a shift what's considered someone with autism over the last 20 years, where there's autism spectrum disorder, which constitutes a broader spectrum of kids.
So we define it coming to us in two different ways. It's either coming through neurological testing through a third party, outside third party that the parents have decided to utilize, or it's coming internally through us doing the testing with students, and then that's where the determination in the IEP process between the family and the school, we look at what is the academic best interest, the learning best interest, not the medical, but the educational best interest of that student. That decision is made by a team. It must be agreed to by the family. So the family and the school department bring this contract, it's a federal contract, together, both agreed, and then that's what we have to carry out. So you may have a student who has, as I said earlier, is in an AP class and still has an IEP, or they may not, but they're still maybe artistic and maybe on the spectrum, while another student is much more, maybe they're more behavioral, and they're also maybe emotional and behavioral, but not artistic. And all of those determinations are done through neuropsychological assessments, academic assessments, and then a team determination on what's the best interest of the student, as agreed to by the family and the school department.
Okay, thank you. One last question. How has COVID, the anomalies with COVID and interfering with the learning process, has that been a factor in the number of IEPs and special high needs children in the district?
I think what you see out of COVID is two things. The first one, you have seen a slight increase in students on IEPs. I can't say it's because of, quote, COVID, but I can say that the social, emotional, behavioral issues of students in the younger age is significantly up across the Commonwealth and the nation. I was just recently in Atlanta, and that was the talk of the town between superintendents from all over the country. At every workshop we were at, every 2 minutes we were all talking about why are we seeing students in pre-K, K1 with such more difficult behavioral and social emotional issues than we've seen in the past. And there's a number of theories out there, I can't speak to specifics. I will tell you that our numbers and what we see in our classrooms in Stoughton, and again, pervasive across the state, not just here, is an increase in those emotional behavior issues.
Okay, so it's possible that this might not be sustainable upward trends in terms of the number of IEPs given the abnormalities during COVID.
So the biggest, that's a great comment, because one of the issues that we have to really take a look at is where were these students that are in school now when COVID happened? Because now what's starting to happen over the next couple of years is we're going to start to see students that had nothing to do with COVID. They weren't around, and they're going to become, so the question will be, do we still see some of these trends, or do we see a shift in the trends? And that could be, according to many different theories, food, drink, atmosphere, environment, parenting. I mean, there's a huge gamut of particular pinpoints, if you will, and I don't think we're going to have any type of information on that probably for a good 10 to 15 years anyways.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Dennis?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to follow up. Earlier you had said that the newest and largest groups of incoming students that we have are both special ed, which you just addressed, and also the ELL. What I'm wondering is there a verification process that's going through to make sure that they are Stoughton residents and that the services that you are offering that are actually affordable to our residents?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking that question, because that's a question that comes up all the time, and I'd love to take that publicly so that we can all talk about it. We're really lucky in Stoughton to do a couple of different things. First of all, we have a full-time registration office. Many school systems, you register at a school that you're going to be going to. We don't. We centralized it years ago before I came on board. It was a great decision. From that, we also have an officer, if you will, an employee of us, that when we have a question on residency, they sit outside that home. We do require affidavits to be signed, but again, anybody can just sign off on those. But that position every year pays for itself in the number of students that we're able to say, I'm sorry, you're no longer here. And so when it comes to, you give us an address and that's where you live, there are some court-ordered issues that take place, right, between divorced families or grandparents raising children and all that stuff. We do have that. But the fact of the matter is our residency office does a great job in making sure that when we hear something, we are going to make sure that we're checking on it to see. And I can assure you that the gentleman who does that job, the students that we do catch, it more than pays for his salary, which is a part-time salary anyway. So great question. Thank you.
All right, Laura.
So just for a moment to follow on to Arnie's question, which was about what would happen if you did not get the Delta amount of 3.4 million, and you said that you would need to do cuts. Is the town or FinCom or town meeting made aware of what those cuts will be, or is that something that if the decision is made that, you know, there aren't any sources of money, cuts need to be made, and it's cut from the school budget, and that's it? Or how does that decision get made, and who knows about it, basically?
Yeah, it's really important for me to be honest with my staff that I know potentially are going to have to start questioning how they're paying their mortgage. So what I have typically done, it's not the first time I've had to make cuts as a superintendent, is in the next few weeks, myself, the superintendent-elect, our assistant superintendents, and myself will be sitting down and looking at the roads, the roadmap of that. We will then have a budget subcommittee meeting with Jillian, who's our representative on the school committee, to talk a little bit more about those different roads. We will tier those cuts in terms of first tier, second tier, third tier, as I discussed earlier. And then from there, we'll begin, as we get closer to knowing what we have or don't have, we'll begin the process of notification.
Okay, so then the town is involved in, isn't involved in deciding where those cuts are or making recommendations or anything?
Those will come as recommendations from the superintendent to the school committee, and from there, the town's involvement becomes supporting and filing for unemployment, which they can begin to collect beginning on the 25th of June if they are unemployed.
So then the cuts would be primarily staff. These aren't
At that point, yes, it would be people.
Okay, and then my last question for now is just looking at the kind of bottom line here. So you said that the net school spending is 67 million as a minimum, and then it looks like so 67 is the minimum, 73 is what is needed. And then there's a 69 in here, which is...
That's the ballpark that we're in terms of all in.
Okay.
So remember that net school spending basically starts at a number which is 100%. If you look at Stoughton, we've been as high as the 128%. In other words, 28% above the net. What's happened in Stoughton is we've had a little bit of I call it like the heartbeat, a little up and down, and then most recently what we're going to see is a decline. So you're going to probably be dropping into the 120s, 118s, 116, and hopefully no lower than that, but we have seen numbers lower than that in the past and decades ago. Most communities your wealthier communities can be into the 130s, 140s, 150s, even 160s. Your communities this year, I think we're going to see 270 school districts that are all going to be all over the place when it comes to net school spending. Many of us are not going to be at the percentage that we think is the percentage that would be fair and accurate to maintaining services. It's really important for the following statement to be made. We're asking, outside of mandates, for level services. There's no new general education staffing taking place. That's what we're asking for. Unfortunately, we know that that's a very hard sell and potentially not going to happen, so we have to start with what Arnie's asked me earlier, which is we're going to have to create lists of what that really means, start with anything that's not people, and then moving to those 3 categories that I outlined earlier.
Okay. So I just want to make sure that it's crystal clear, because there's so many numbers. Net school spending is 67. What you're saying is your kind of ballpark is 69, and then there's the ask is 73.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Just to clarify, the 73 would be a level services budget for next year based on this year's.
Correct.
All right, so, okay, thank you. Joel,
Joe, I'm sorry to get mundane, but I only have some clarification questions about the actual budget.
Yep.
I'll give you the page numbers if you want to go to them.
Yep.
On page 12 of your budget, which is the middle school, you have a line item called building-based substitutes. What are those?
Those, in general, what we've tried to do with our district is to have a person, a building-based person, who's literally reports every single day as a substitute for the building to cover wherever the need is for that day, because we always have an attendance hole. So instead of just calling in people, which we still do on a regular basis, we have that one person that's a given.
All right, so if they're not needed, they go home.
No, there's always a need. It could be that it could be that they're going to be literally supporting anything to do with issues in hallways. They're going to do extra CAF duties, any of that stuff.
All right, I was just curious
Yep.
about that. Also, you have that in the high school budget, too.
That's correct.
Also, you have in both the high school and the middle school, security and hall monitors.
Yeah, we have a total of 9 hall monitors within the 2 buildings.
I got 10, but okay.
Yeah.
What do they do?
They are responsible for literally the flow of the building, checking doors, anything to do with, quote, the security of the building.
Are they part of the teachers' union, or?
They are part of a different union.
Okay, all right.
We have a teachers' union, an administrators' union, a cafeteria union, an administrative assistant union, a paraprofessional union, which within it has a hall monitors union, and then a custodial union as well.
I'm sorry I asked. Okay, on page 15, Joe, also in the middle school, you have science professional salaries and STEM professional salaries. What's the difference between the two?
Yeah, so your science teachers are typically your folks that are teaching your core science classes. Your STEM is your science, technology, engineering, mathematics program, which runs typically sometimes as a part of an elective program within middle schools.
So it's basically separate. I think you have the same thing in the high school too, right?
No, not at the high school.
You don't have
No.
STEM?
We'll
Okay.
be moving to STEM across the elementary levels.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we'll
Okay.
be doing that as part of the new building. If you recall, the new elementary school actually has a STEM lab.
I
and
do
then we'll
remember
be-
that,
And then
yes.
we'll be creating STEM labs at the other remaining 3 elementary schools, so that it's equivalent, that all students in K to 5 have STEM available to them.
Okay, thank you. Page 28, this is on special education. You have professional salaries at $8,186,353. The FTE is 90.5, which is an average salary of $90,457. What, are they all the same? Do they float between schools, or?
So in terms of professional salaries and administration, this could be, in general, account for everything from a classroom teacher, but in most cases, we're talking about things like speech, occupational therapy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In some cases, they're shared staff. In some cases, they're actually full-time. It all depends on the caseload. So if you might be, for example, a building with 400 elementary schools, it might be a 1.0, while at another building with 267, it might be a 0.6 there and a 0.4 somewhere else. So we do split that staff.
Okay, but it's 90 FTEs. That's a lot of FTEs.
And growing, and it's mandated.
Well, I know that's the next question. Is it mandated?
It's mandated.
Yeah, okay.
So every special education position that we have in the district is tied into delivery of services to students on an IEP. and/or the potential that a student's going to be on an IEP. So you may have a special education teacher that is providing services in a general education classroom to students that are included, or they're in part of an inclusion program, not a separate program.
Wow, okay. I think I got that. Also, under special education, you have paraprofessional salaries, 109.5 FTEs. That averages out to about 29,557 of an FTE. Are they full-time, part-time?
Almost all the cases, they're full-time, and they're also mandated because they're tied into IEPs.
So at that pay range, what are their responsibilities?
They're full-time employees that are supporting a classroom. They could be in an inclusion classroom, for example, at the high school, or they could be in a specialized classroom. They could be working one-to-one with a student in a specialized classroom. In most cases, they're working with students within those specialized classrooms. We have specialized classrooms with 1 teacher, 3 paraprofessionals, and 5 students, for example, because of the service delivery of what the students need.
Okay. Thank you. And I do have, hold on, wait a minute, let me find it here. Oh, yeah, here we go. Page 29, under the superintendent's office. Fiscal year 26 was 245.5, and fiscal year 27 is 190. Julie, thank you very much for taking the pay cut. I'm pretty sure that's not what's going to happen. So could you explain why the difference is there?
Yeah, the difference in general is salary. I'm going out at a higher salary. She's coming in at a lower salary.
Is that really the difference?
That is the difference.
Oh, okay. Well, I
Top
wasn't
of the
sure.
game
Okay.
starting out.
All right.
I will tell you that in a year from now, when she's sitting in this seat and you're asking the same question, you're going to say, darn, we should be paying her what we paid Bayetta.
Well, I'm going to say that anyway because I know Julie.
Yeah, it's a difference in the starting salary of a new superintendent in Stoughton versus a veteran.
All right. I was just curious. And lastly, also on that page, and I think I know what this is for, Joe, but you have a thing called set aside for salary increases. Maybe you want to tell us a little bit more about that. For Julie. For Julie, right. Extra $1 million.
As you know, we announced earlier, we had 2 unions. One we're very close to closing in on. The other
Right.
one we just closed in. It's not public yet because the 2 sides haven't finalized, ratified. But the fact is the set-asides is put together for the purposes of meeting contractual obligations during negotiations.
All right. So the negotiations happen, the contracts are executed. If it happens during the fiscal year, you're counting on this money to account for anything that you hadn't accounted for before, or?
Yeah, so these funds were put aside for the purposes of what we, the school committee, and myself believed would be the number that we would need in order to be able to settle the 1-year contract of a 3-year. In other words, the first year, because when we put the budget together, we did not yet have settled contracts.
All right. I think I understand that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And earlier, I spoke to you about, you actually talked about the enrollment in each school. And I thought it was kind of interesting. This is a couple of differences. It appears Daw and Gibbons appear to be the same size.
That is true. Both the Daw and the Gibbons also hold the most significant number of our specialized programs. The Gibbons has 4 and the Daw has 3. So that's where students from all parts of town could actually be going
All right,
in.
so there are 4 additional FTEs in Daw than there is in Gibbons. Is that that would be the reason?
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Typically, the sizes of the FTEs in comparison with our schools typically have to do with, we're pretty consistent around 3 sections or 4 sections of general ed classrooms.
Yep.
And then you see the uptick because you have specialized classrooms and they need their own teacher and so on and so forth, and another school may not have that position.
All right, and this one, Joe, you're going to have to refresh my memory on because I'm old and I can't remember things, all right? South School has 263, Wilkins has 335. The total together is 598, call it 600. The new school, what's the size of enrollment?
It's 550 to 600.
All right, so we're right at the limit.
We're right there. Now, remember that part of our issue there is we are about to see a
Yep.
small dip in our elementary numbers.
Right.
For If I had to be a betting person, probably somewhere around 20 to 30 students as our building is opened up. My recommendation, as I've said to the superintendent-elect and to the building committee, has been to not put more than 575 students in that building, because you don't know what's going to happen that summer. Traditionally, as we saw at the high school, when a new building opens, they shall come.
Okay, well, we're really talking about fiscal year 29 for the new building. I think.
Correct.
Yeah, so.
Yep.
All right, thank you very much for the clarifications.
You bet.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Jonna?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I asked a valid question earlier, and instead of thwarting my free speech, wouldn't it be more beneficial for all of us to get an answer? Wouldn't that be why we're here?
I asked you at the time if you were willing, on behalf of everybody, to get an answer, to reword your question with an appropriate term, and you chose not to. So,
Did use an appropriate term. It's in the U.S.
shall I
Title Code
say,
8.
we're not going to argue it. All right, I'm done arguing it right now. It's been enough tonight. All right, what I considered appropriate. So I ruled your question out of order. If you could ask the question again with a word that I find appropriate, you may ask it. If not, we'll just move on to the next person on the list.
Well, I have to stand up for my free speech, and it's a shame that you won't find it beneficial to get the answer. It seems crazy to me, but I don't know why you wanted you want to squash my free speech.
Thank you. Becca.
Thank you. Three hopefully quick things. Number one, I love the way this budget looks. Thank you so much. I feel like last year's was very difficult to read, so the way you guys have laid this out is great, so thank you. I have a question about buses, which I know is always a big topic. So number one, do we own our buses?
We do not.
Okay, so
First Student is our contracted yellow bus server, and I also want to provide you with some general input that over the next few years, you will see some significant improvements in our transportation around special education. We recently cut a deal with First Student to do our preschool. So we now have our preschool students coming predominantly through First Student instead of 9 different vendors. The other thing we just recently did is for our out-of-district students, we are currently finalizing a contract with First Student that would create that a special education transportation run is just like a yellow bus run and not a per student charge. Example, the minivan is $350. It doesn't matter if there's 4 kids in there or 1. It's no longer one kid is $150, another kid's $150, another kid's $150. Over a 3 to 5 year period, you will see a savings, again, depending on the number of students, of about $1.6 million. It's a significant long-term savings for the district, and it'll be reflective. The second part is, at some point, the district has plans to own some of its own for those special circumstances that we think would be in our best interest, and so that will probably be at some point in our capital plan.
Okay. Thank you for that. Part of my question about that, I don't know about Massachusetts, I know other states do this, but have you guys looked into other opportunities for helping families if they're out, what I think it's the 2 miles, or if they don't get a seat on the bus, of helping families figure out alternate transportation instead of leaving it on their own to figure it out themselves?
Right. So there's a couple of issues. It's a great question. We did look into a couple of opportunities to do that, and we find ourselves in an issue of liability as the number one issue. Now, what I would like to do is at some point have that discussion that if we could have our own small minivans, even buses, what that would allow for is those special circumstances, even if it was at a minimal charge or no charge, because those buses could also be utilized for other things like our smaller sports teams when they travel. Instead of our large yellow bus taking them at X number of dollars and a flat fee, you would save some money. So that's the goal, and I'll leave that to the superintendent-elect, but it's a hard goal. It's not easy because it takes about 3 to 4 years to get that unless you're willing to buy transportation that is used. And that always comes with a lot of other sidebar issues.
Okay. Then my third question, last summer was, I believe, the first summer that we did not have the summer STEM program at the middle school. I know the budget is very, very tight. I believe when we first did this program, it was a grant, and then we put it into the operating budget. Are there any additional grant opportunities out there to be able to bring things like that back?
Yeah, so it's a great question as well. I will tell you that the superintendent-elect and the team are meeting on Friday to discuss summer programming. So we'll be able to give you a little bit more information. Within the operating budget, our ESY special education program is in there. There might be some EL grant money like we've had in the past, but in terms of things like STEM and all that, it's really, really dry right now in terms of the grant funds. I think a lot of that has to do with the status of the federal government and just saying, you know what, we're moving things in this direction and that direction, regardless of your philosophy. But even the private grants have somewhat dried out right now. But we're always looking for them.
Thank you.
Yep.
Arnie?
Hi, back again. Wow, those acronyms are amazing. There's more acronyms than there are when you text. Just want to go back to preschool, and I just want to address non-special needs students. The parents pay a certain amount. What is how much do we cover that the parents do not?
It's a revolving account, so what would be happening is the students are in that program anyways. The idea is that the program is already being funded for the purpose of the special ed program for the students. So what you're doing is you're bringing in more students to be part of that classroom. So in general, we have to fund 100% of that special education position as much as possible. So sometimes we have to go into the budget. A lot of times we don't have to go in. It really depends on the year. For example, if enrollment was significantly down, then we might have to utilize operational funds.
Thank you. I like the answer. One last question. When will we know what the bottom line for the school department will be? I see that what they want, or what I should say, I think it's the select board, so correct me if I'm wrong, wants $69,610,000. How will we know when the real bottom line will be available?
When we vote it.
What?
When we vote it. That's when we'll know the next bottom line.
Excellent answer.
Because our job is to submit a balanced budget. So when we vote the budget, we will have to have, every department will have to add up to whatever our total revenues are.
Thank you, Carolyn.
You're welcome.
Carolyn to the rescue.
Marty?
What is a district interventionist?
Great question. So one of the things that we try to do to maintain direct services to students is we try to work with students prior to any type of IEP implementation. So let's say you have a student who is just below reading level. We might provide that interventions to get that student there, which will long-term just means the students gets to reading quicker, sooner, and better as just one opportunity. Yep.
Heidi?
Hi.
Hi.
I'm here with my marching band winter guard mom hat on. I was looking at the budget on page 17. It says summer band camp, and there's no money in there for summer band camp. It doesn't look like there may have been money in there before. I don't know if it's a new line item, if it's been taken out years ago, but I know there has to be a cost associated with band camp, including like staff and building use.
Yeah, so you'll see that what happens with this is a perfect example of trying to move things into the right areas and categories. So things like summer band camp, which we have stipends for, those are in the contract. Those are fully funded. No cuts to them currently.
Okay, and then the use of the building, is there no facility use because it's a school run?
That's correct. We basically eat that.
Okay, all right, well, enjoy those bites.
I'm a former musician, so I can say that.
My other question is, on page 24, on the bottom, it says homeless and foster care transportation, and it just has the transportation, and I was just wondering if we provide, as a district, other supports or services for students who are not housed.
Yeah, it's another great question. I have to tell you that one of the things that I see about Stoughton is a sense of community, not only within our Stoughton Public Schools, but within our wraparound services as a community, from our colleagues here at Town Hall to the third-party parties that we have in town. We have a laundry list of support services that we provide, including counseling services, supports for, in some cases, we have people learning English as a second language, and they're also homeless, and we're trying to support them to learn English, as just one example. Food is another one. We definitely have families that are in need of food support. So we work with all of the different agencies as well. It's less of a budget issue for us. It's more of a community involvement issue. This particular line item is actually mandated under federal law. And that's the reason why you see it.
Thank you, that's all I had.
Pleasure.
Joel and Ben, I have several questions, but I'll wait.
I have a friend who's also a one of those band parents, and and in his behalf, the question is, will you be, if your high school bands enter competitions that they have to travel to, will you providing the transportation for them?
What we've asked of the, in the last year, because we ran into I'll call it a hiccup.
Yep.
A couple of years ago, is what we've said is, like we would with a sports team, that, this is the fundamental of the season, if you will. And of course, if there's always something that we have to look for, then we will. I'm not a person where if you have a group of kids who need to get on a bus to go to an extra competition, then darn it, we better find that $1,000 and do it. And that could mean contract services. It could mean it's coming from an activity that we're not utilizing, or any of that stuff. And that's what we've done.
You agree, Julie? Okay.
Ben?
Through you, Madam Chair, are we currently enrolling inter-district students in the Stoughton?
No, we are not a school choice district. And matter of fact, last night, the school committee for 26-27 voted no, that we continue not to be a school choice district.
Okay, is that a variable in our Chapter 70 funding?
No, that is actually a separate funding. That funding under school choice is a flat $5,000 per student from a student that comes from another district into Stoughton. And then that fee is actually utilized as a revolving account. It is not part of the operational budget.
Thank you.
Yep.
I have a couple questions, mostly on special ed. First of all, in the special ed department, we had the professional staff of like 90 FTEs. Does that include all the special ed teachers for the district?
In general, yes.
All right, so you don't break them out by schools as well?
What we're trying to do is we're trying to take a look at that department because it's so specialized as a department. So that's how we've done it.
Okay. The second, all right. Give me a second. Oops. All right, so the second question I had kind of has to do with the school psychologist / team chairs. I see that you're increasing them by from 8.6 to 11.4.
Yeah, so we moved within last year into this year into the idea of school psychologists and team chairs. So they're two different positions. So we have people that are going to be doing all of the testing and not running the meetings versus these folks. There'll be 5.5 or 6 of them, if I remember correctly, whose sole responsibility, literally under the superintendent of schools, is that they have the final say as part of the team meeting on behalf of the district on what services are going to be provided to a student in district for special education, or if they go out of district for special education.
All right, I want to say thank you, first of all, as a former parent of a student on special needs. I did not like the school psychologist team chair model because the school psychologists are very good at being school psychologists and not necessarily as good as being team chairs. And I found the best team chair was when we had, before we went to the school psychologist, we had Doss Campbell was running
Right.
an IP meeting, and I thought she handled everything.
I just want to add a little bit to that. So this is not a one-year plan. This is a part that Julie will continue on. The idea here is that we take our school psychologists and have them do psychological and academic testing, which will take the special education teacher out of doing the academic testing, which means they will now be more available for direct services in either an inclusion classroom or or in an academic support classroom, so that special education students are getting the direct services that we believe they should be getting and not a mixed match of the testing. Then added to that, the team chair will be the person who I said earlier legally is the final say on behalf of the team on what the service delivery model for that student will look like. We believe that what that will do is have 5.5 to 6 people that will be utilizing the same data points to make determinations. In other words, the data is what's supposed to tell you. Now, that data includes teacher input. It's not just a test. So we have to keep that in mind. But the idea is that we become consistent across the board in K-5 around if you have a student with these X scores and comments from teachers and this student, that they are both being treated in the same way in terms of their delivery of services. You know, of course, kids are different, so there's always something, so it's not robotic, but the idea is to be more consistent on our delivery of services.
Yeah, I think that's good. All right, my next question is, there's been an increase in the out-of-district placements.
Yeah.
What kind of, I'm not asking for any confidential information by any means, but what kinds of programs are we seeing these out-of-district placements, and what kind of programs, is it possible to bring back in districts? I know obviously some of them it's just not, but.
Give me 1 second so I
Sure.
can get to that page, and I can, and again, I'll make sure that all of this stuff that you've asked tonight, as much as possible, is
And
just
this is
given
on
to you.
page 29, I believe.
Right, so when we look at out-of-district only, for the sake of discussion, we see students, a total of 70 as of the writing of this budget. Right now, it's actually at 71, so that you know. The grade levels start at preschool and go all the way through 12 plus. Okay, so students.
Which would be up to the 22nd birthday.
22nd birthday. So that's what we call 12 plus. So when we see with those students is that in most cases, you're seeing autism and then emotional. Those are the two groups. Now, this particular year, so that you know, this is on last minute kind of counting, if you will. What we've noticed is this year alone, we had 9 move-ins. So these are students that in last year's budget presentation to you were not accounted for. They moved in after. If they moved in before April, then we have a split cost, and then if it's after April for the following year, we pick up the whole. We currently have 26 of the 70 students in collaboratives, 44 in private settings. 19 students in pre-K to 5, so more than likely long-term, those students will be in out-of-district placement, and 51 students in grades 6 to 12 plus, including, I won't say the number because I don't want to identify, but less than 10, it's typically the number I use, at the upper grades that over the next few years will age out and/or. So there could be a financial benefit to that in terms of that particular group. And again,
Unless there's other groups, other students that are going to come up that meet the same profile.
Exactly. Then the other part is, so that you're aware, when we look at our programming internally, what we've continued to do is grow programs. So currently at the Wilkins, we have a therapeutic learning classroom, and at the DAW, there's a total of 5 classrooms. I won't get into the number of students. I don't want to get, but we have 5 centers, if you will. We have our Getting Ready for Our World, or GROW program in preschool. Those are 2 different classrooms. We have the RISE program, the LC program, which is the Learning Center. We have the Alternating Learning Center, and then we have the language-based classroom at the Gibbons, the Hanson, and the South. And that's a total of 11 classrooms. And then at the middle school, we have a total of 7 classrooms that also go from the Reaching Independence Through Structured Education, or RISE program, then the Learning Center, the Alternative Learning Center, the Emotional Support Program, and the language-based classroom. And then as we move to the high school, we have the Therapeutic Learning Center, the Learning Center, and the Emotional Support Program, also accounting for approximately, for 6 classrooms. And all of those are funded and, are staffed by teachers, paraprofessionals. Could be 1 teacher, 2 paraprofessionals. It could be 1 and 1. It could be 1 and 3. It's typically 1 teacher with multiple paraprofessionals, depending on the need of the students. And then lastly, doesn't go with the out of district, but just for information, we have elementary inclusion students that range from 38 in one building to as many as over 50. Same thing at the middle school and the high school. Since I've been here, we have increased specialized programs by 4 classrooms. We have 2 more next year for a total of 6.
So are the new programs all from the RISE program?
So we have
'Cause I know that was a new one.
Yeah, so we have both RISE programs as well as therapeutic learning centers, the TLCs and the alternative. Those are the growing ones.
So all right, the TLC, the RISE, and then the
Right.
ALC programs?
Yeah, I will tell you that we do have a very comprehensive internal review that we are doing. It's not ready for publication and discussion because it really needs input from a lot of other folks and potentially not potentially, in my opinion, long-term our families around the best way to deliver the service, which is the number one thing, right? The number one thing is the delivery of the service. Let's keep that in mind. No disrespect to FinCom and money. The second thing is, can you be more efficient with your spending of your money? But it has to be grounded on best practices for students.
Oh, I agree with that. Okay. Sure, and then Dawn?
Thank you, Don. I'm sorry, this is going to be really quick. When you were listing the services that are available under the special ed in the classrooms, for some reason I thought you were going to mention the BRIGHT program that's over at the middle school. I know that that's more of a temporary thing, but for some reason I thought that would fit in that same category.
Yeah, so typically BRIGHT is open to any student, right? Because it's grounded on a student who may need some supports through hospitalization, which may be that they have an IEP, may also mean they don't have an IEP, may be that they end up on an IEP. So you can utilize it in those. My history has been to keep that program as a general education program with special education supports. You bet.
Dawn?
Hi. Hello. I know, being a suburb and we have a close proximity to Boston with the higher density, are we a part of the Mass Urban School Projects? And if we are, would that help us any? I'm just curious.
So we are part of the Urban Superintendents Network, which consists of over 50 communities, a significant number of them what would be called suburban urban communities. In other words, we are a suburban community, but our school district is looking more and more urban in terms of our student population. Stoughton happens to be part of that network. It requires 3 things in order to do that: an increase in enrollment, an increase in students of minority background, and special education and EL, which, as I said earlier, is our growing. So when you look at our student population, 60% of our students in the Stoughton Public Schools who are here are minority students. Our community is not a minority community, but our school system is, and that's why we have that label as being a urban school district.
Being an urban school district, does that give us any more ability to get more grants or anything from like the state?
Yeah, great question. So there has been in the past the potential for some of these grants when more of them were available, which in the old days, when I was very young, used to be called the 40-40 grants, which were 40% poverty, 40% minority, usually moved you up the ladder. You don't see as many of those anymore. The biggest issue is going to be, to your question, Dawn, is really going to be the issue of what is taking place of the Student Opportunity Act starting fiscal '28. That's going to be the big question. How does the state address these districts that are changing so much over time, and how are they going to be funded in order to be able to meet the needs? What we see with our enrollment of students is a flow from what I would call the southern Boston area, coming down this way, going all the way down into the Upper Cape, and actually going west into communities right off the 495 belt. Framingham, Milford, those are some of the two biggest. So, our Haitian community is predominantly coming out of the JPs, the Dorchesters, and so on and so forth, in general, that we see. But we also have to remember that, and I was just reminded of this the other day by someone, that there's a pretty good history of the foundation of these families already being here in very small numbers, and now our numbers are just growing. And as you know, this community at one time had a huge Portuguese, Azorean community. I happen to be part of that, and that community is going away. And what we've seen is an increase in our ML and our EL population is predominantly a Brazilian population. And so now we're also seeing more of a Haitian background versus the Cape Verdean community that we also had, even though we still see some Cape Verdean, it's not at the same number that you might see in Brockton, for example. So it is an ebb and flow of those communities as they move this way. And to be quite honest, like it or not, agree with it or not, Stoughton has been a pretty welcoming community. I mean, I'm a product of arriving here as a student in 1974 when I was 5 years old. It's always been that type of a welcoming community. It's just we're seeing a lot of changes that go with that part of that change.
Thank you.
You bet.
Jonna?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have two questions. Why was the school choice voted down?
Two reasons. The first one is the school choice allocation has been the same for 22 fiscal years, $5,000. Yet the education of a student is significantly more than that. You just heard 17.5 earlier. So to me, if you had open seats, not a bad idea. You can make some money. And I can give you an example. I was the superintendent in another district for 10 years. We had school choice. When I left that district, we had a revolving account with over $1.2 million in school choice students, about 200 students that would come from predominantly the city of Attleboro and the city of Taunton. And it's a process. You can do school choice by having it totally open. You can have just a total number of seats through a lottery system. And then you file, and then the other town pays for it. We do have students here in Stoughton who choose to go to other districts, and the town of Stoughton picks up that tab as part of the revenue.
I think you can see that on the cherry sheet.
Yes.
Thank you. And the last comment I wanted to make is your choice to be respectful to others is at my expense of free speech. Thank you, and I won't acquiesce.
Thank you. Heidi?
Do we have a grant writer on staff?
Yeah, it's the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Technology, Mr. Ford in the back.
Thank you.
He is our guy. He's the guru. He's the guy who writes it all, puts it together. We recently received a $25,000 grant to start up an early college program, which you're going to see at Stoughton High School in the next 2 years, where students will be able to take college courses for free through Bridgewater State University as part of their school day or as part of our Stoughton Academy program. And students will be able to earn actual credits from Bridgewater State University as high school students and potentially graduate with as many as 12 to 30 credits. As one example of his work with grants.
That's a fantastic example. Thank you.
Yep.
I have a question, if you could explain. There are, I believe, 3 assistant superintendents. So could you explain, for those of us that wonder, like, what do they all do and why do we have them?
Right. So you typically, in a district this size, you have three categories of those positions. You have an assistant superintendent for curriculum instruction technology, combination of that. You have a business manager or an assistant finance, superintendent for finance, and you have, in our particular case, an HR or an assistant superintendent HR. It's a title issue. In a district this size, you would still maintain those three positions. You would never not have an HR person, you would never not have a business person, you would never not have a curriculum instruction person. What happened with one of those positions that I know for a fact is we posted for a business manager position, which was a very traditional title in Stoughton for many years. And in the year that before I was hired, I was appointed, but I wasn't here, we posted and got 0 applicants for weeks and months on end. It was then changed to assistant superintendent for finance and operation, and we got applicants. It just comes down to looking at who's out there and what are the titles that they're looking for and so on and so forth, and then do you get the candidates that you want?
All right, and then so, like, I understand what the assistant superintendent of curriculum and technology or instruction, you know, that's something that's probably unique to a school district versus, but like, what's the difference between a human resources assistant superintendent and then we have a director of we have a whole human resources department at the town, so.
Right. So it's all to do with the educational piece. So it's labor contracts on our side that are not done through the town, they're literally done through our side. It's everything with onboarding new staff, mentoring, licenses, all of that. Anything to do with healthcare and all of that is business office and over here to town hall. Anything to do with unemployment is town hall, through a business office to town hall. Anything to do with, did I say healthcare? Everything to do is town hall. Everything to do with 403Bs and all that is all town hall stuff. And they do, by the way, I have the most employees. They do a fantastic job. I have no qualms or negativity to say about that department. I think it does a great job. Our department is very driven around those HR issues of contracts, just recently dealing with grievances, FMLA situations. Those are all handled through that department for all 700 of our employees. So that's why you see it. By the way, professional development, credit bearing, negotiations is that the person is involved with. I'm trying to think, our wellness program is totally run through that office. So they're doing wellness in terms of, and then the last and most important one that is not very public is that Matt is also our director of safety for the district in terms of all items to do with the safety of our buildings.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And the finance director, or the assistant superintendent of finance is basically
It's
running-
everything to do with money. Anything and everything to do with money, procurement, all of that stuff goes through that office.
They do all the procurement and everything through that office.
Procurement is a combination with my office, to be quite honest. But that's just because of the model that I like to do.
Right.
But in general, it's everything to do with the budget process. It's everything to do with the contracts. It's everything to do with making sure that everybody's paid and all that other stuff. It's a process, right? Because by law, everything has to come to town hall. There's
All
no
the
question.
payroll, everything has to go through town
It goes
hall.
through here, and then, I hate to say it, I'm going to guess, I'm saying this without having the knowledge, after all these years, there is some duplication, there's no doubt. But at the end of the day, town hall is the one that says, yes, this bill is being paid, and yes, this person is receiving their salary. And we're part of that process, but we count on our colleagues at town hall to do that, no matter, so that way I get paid on Wednesdays, Thursdays, whatever day it is.
Yeah, you want to get paid. All right, thank you. That was my question. Are there any more questions from members of the committee? Okay, I'm going to open it up to members of the public. You can come up and ask questions on the budget or make a comment on the budget. Cynthia? If you could just please, and Cynthia, I'm sorry, Cynthia, you're already going to do this automatically, but could you please, when you do come up, state your name and address for the record?
Cynthia Walsh, 1096 Park Street. I probably am the oldest person in the room. And I probably have more experience with the Stoughton school system than anyone else in the room since 1953. When I was a child, a long time ago, Special needs meant that you were all clumped in a room, literally in the cellar of the Jones School, with one teacher, no aides. Whether it was a physical, mental, emotional, developmental issue, you were all in that class. You weren't allowed to play with the rest of us. I guess they thought that cerebral palsy was catchy, because some of the kids had that. If they walked with a limp, if they had a speech impediment, they were stuck in that room with that woman who, as far as I could tell, had no special training in special ed. What we have now is a huge improvement. Many of these special needs are hereditary. I can trace dyslexia in my family 5 generations. Autism for at least 3. Unfortunately, before it was recognized in 1995. I won't go into what happened to my uncle and my cousin. It defies imagination that human beings can be treated that way because they have a disability or some sort of learning problem. The other thing about IEPs is they aren't forever. Some children have a language deficit. Some children need some physical therapy. Some children need some help with reading, but they catch up to their age mates, and they don't need an IEP anymore. Not everyone who has an IEP has a lifelong disability. Some of these conditions are temporary, even something like dyslexia. There can be years of help with that, and the person can go on to function perfectly well in our society and make a very decent living. It bothers me that some people want to take the so-called models, I guess, versus the kids that are going to cost a little more money and pit them against each other. These kinds of kids can be in any family, and they have the model brothers and sisters. When we talk about them, they're not, well, I shouldn't even call them them. When we talk about folks that have any kind of issue that makes it harder for them to move forward, we have to realize they're part of us. And many of them, even children on the nonverbal end of the autism spectrum, have been employed in Hollywood making cartoons, because making each cell is very boring, and the average person only can do it for a few months and they quit. That drives them out of their mind. They did some test runs with some kids on the nonverbal spectrum. They love it. They're good at it, and they aren't the least bit bored, and they're so proud when they get their paychecks. So I don't like it to, when people make it sound like these are useless children. They will be useless adults. They will be a burden for the rest of their lives. That's not true.
Thank you. Dave?
Thank you, Madam Chair. David Lurie, 18 Robinette Road. And I have to stand somewhere else. Yeah, so I just wanted to say I agree with all the math that I've heard tonight. I agree even with how we reach the challenges that we've found ourselves in as a school district. I don't necessarily agree with how to get out of that problem based on some things that I want to share. One of the things I noticed over the years was that when, back in the day, we were spending less per student on average than any of the surrounding communities, but we managed to come out of it with a reasonably average outcome in terms of student performance in their grades and all that, and their graduation rates and all of those things. Now we're spending much more than the average in our surrounding communities, and we're doing maybe the same. Maybe we're slightly better. But I think that's some context. I think that's important, that the amount that you spend per student is going to be pretty close no matter how much extra you get for the budget. Now, in terms of like where we came from before Student Opportunity Act, because those are the days in which we were really underfunded, and I like the explanation that we heard where over 4 years, it was like a recalibration to adjust for where we are with Student Opportunity Act requirements. We have a larger population, we have a larger population of ELL requirements, special needs requirements, and the state recognized that and they started feeding us a lot of money. They gave us a couple $1 million in one of the years, like $3 million in another, $4 million in another. I think it came even close to $5 million. I think we heard top 25 schools in the entire state in terms of the kind of SOA money that was calibrated up. In the last year, it looks like, and I agree, that the state made some kind of mistake in trying to roll all of the shelter students into our budget as if they were part of the regular general population, where in the beginning, it was $105 a day per student, as if it was a carve-out, almost like an earmark, like a separate funding source, knowing that it might just be temporary. Let's not incorporate them because we might have to take that money back. So we don't want to mingle it in with the dependency of a Chapter 70 kind of thing. So, but on the way to reaching that, I did the math, and we're probably at least north of $9 million of SOA money before that extra year with all these extra funds rolling in. So when I think about the recalibration going up, shouldn't there also be a calibration back down by that last year? And when I think about the impact, I'm like, well, wait a minute, $3 million extra dollars for 200 students? Like, I originally thought that those kids were somehow at least absorbed into the classrooms, but it sounds like, no, we have to actually hire all these extra teachers in order to accommodate the 200, which seems absurd to me because the math doesn't add up. It's like 30 students per school or something. And I don't know how that would cause you to have to hire that many extra teachers. So I think that it should be relatively easy to recalibrate just down by that last, 15, 20% down from all the growth that you saw going up. I mean, we have at least 45 new teachers just in the first few years of SOA. Now you add the extra, maybe 15 teachers? I don't know. I'm just saying, we grew a lot of teachers before we have to calibrate back down just a little bit. So I think that when you look at the numbers, and by the way, there's some more math that came out in November. The town manager came out with a balanced budget. It never made it to a vote by the select board, even though it should. I think it's absurd that it doesn't.
Actually, it's because of the charter.
Well, the charter also, you can go back and forth on that, and I don't mean to.
Okay,
because
we
I
can
think
avoid
it's
that.
absurd
All right,
because we've
thank
done
you.
it for decades without, okay? But the balanced budget came out when you see $69,610,219 plus a bump. It wasn't a decrease in Chapter 70. It was an increase of $310,938. So the actual balanced budget is $69,921,157, I should say. $69,921,157. You actually have a balanced budget number. That is the budget that we should be seeing at town meeting. In my estimation is you already grew your recalibration up. You have to knock a little bit off in the last year to recalibrate to get to balance. And that balance incorporates that extra $9 million. It already includes that. They didn't take it away. It's rolled into Chapter 70, which is, as long as you maintain the enrollment, you should be okay, even after you lost the 200 students. So I'm just saying, bring to town meeting a balanced budget based on what the town said, 3.5% increase. And by the way, it was a vote on December 16th, and it was a perfunctory vote. It was the vote based on, we don't really know what the number is, so let's just ask for everything to maintain what would be otherwise level service, and we'll see where we land. Well, we see where we land. House 1 came out. This is the number that you were waiting for. So this should be a revote by the town school committee to say, here's our new number, let's vote this as balanced, and then bring that to Finance Committee, bring that to town meeting, because that's the right thing to do. Balanced budgeting is what we should be doing, not spending one-time sources of money, which is a structural deficit. We already got off of structural deficits. We don't want to go backwards, back to that. We need to recalibrate the SOA money. Thank you.
Anyone else? Come on up, Natasha.
Hi, thank you. Madam Chair, Natasha, Precinct 2. Still getting used to the introduction. I just have one clarifying question. What was the amount of students that are no longer in our school system, be it here with the migrant program that we had going on? 204? Thank you. My question is, I know that, sorry for the feedback. I know structurally our staffing was changed to accommodate those students in the classroom. They're gone. Although I completely agree with increasing budgets where necessary so that we have leveled services, my concern is how is the school committee and superintendent team ensuring that we are engaging the right staff? So we have a lot of staff with longevity, but are they the right staff meeting the needs of our students, or are they bodies taking up space and making it a situation where our administration team feels the need to keep hiring to meet the needs that our current staff cannot meet or are unwilling to meet?
So you just asked one of the most complicated questions I got tonight, and I'll tell you why. So meeting the needs of today's students in Stoughton or in areas where I've worked is pretty daunting, especially when you have the learning challenges that students have and or you have a demographic shift of what takes place. This is not going to go over well with some, but when I was a student, I had many people that looked like me, spoke my language, knew my culture, made me feel like going to school was easy. When you have a demographic shift like we're having in Stoughton, it's a discussion you have to have around who our students are versus who our staff are. It doesn't mean that our staff can't reach students. It does mean that the shift that's taking place requires that we have more training and more opportunities to understand where students are coming from socioeconomically, racially, and so on and so forth. Our biggest increase in Stoughton over the last few years is around our low-income population of students and the desires or the issues that come with that. So it's not the discussion of, quote, the right staff. It's a discussion of having hard conversations around the best interest of how to reach all students. And that means understanding the variety of our students in front of us. I have to tell you, in general, I think we do a really good job. I also know that we have what I would call, I guess, hiccups throughout every district that I've worked at. So we do have fundamentally, we don't hire to make up for a teacher that's not performing at the level that they should be. That's a different process, and we wouldn't be able to afford that. We just wouldn't. We have pretty balanced class sizes throughout the district, but we do have areas of supports and needs within our staff, understanding our students' cultural backgrounds and so forth. And to be quite honest, we have done some of that training. It was done prior to my coming here. It's been done since I've been here. And then the last part, in just talking from 10,000 feet, is it's important for people to communicate at the principal level and then at the superintendent's level when those items are coming up and then not being addressed. And I think that one of the things that I see is that there are times where we have this inability to make sure that we're trying to address those issues directly and not indirectly, because it's hard to challenge to take on that issue. So I'll leave it at that. But we do know we have areas where we have to strengthen our understanding of our students as a school culture and climate. But at the same time, that's grounded in professional development and opportunities, and not just the hiring of staff. We just have not hired staff because there's a weakness in an area. We wouldn't be able to do that financially anyways.
Thank you. I have a quick question that just occurred to me during this. How many staff did we have to hire while the students in the shelters were enrolled in Stoughton? So like we lost 204 between this year and, over this current year. So
Yeah,
how many
we
staff did you have to deal with that?
started to lose staff this prior year when our students were going away. So, interpreters, for example, people that were supporting the bus runs, classroom teachers. I mean, we cut those staff. Some of those folks went to other places, but we made those cuts. I know I haven't hired 45 new positions in my 3 years here. I'd have to go back, and I'm happy to do that, to take a look at what that number is. But I know for a fact that I filled positions, but I know that I haven't recommended the hiring of those types of numbers. And again, I don't need to get into that debate. But we have let go of staff that was no longer needed as part of our shelter. Like I said earlier, if you have 3 shelter students in a class of 21, you're not going to dump that teacher because you still have 18, right? You're only going to make that change when maybe you're down to 14 in each section, and you say, okay, I'm going to, like I said earlier, we can eliminate a position based on enrollment because we had a declining enrollment. Like I suggested earlier in my presentation, that I do see that as part of our internal discussions, that we're going to be able to do that as part of cutting back or meeting the deficit that we have.
I know, I just wanted to clarify because I don't, it's easy to equate, each group of 30 students means another teacher, but it doesn't necessarily mean like that. Could you get me a list of things that were cut over the last couple of years, like positions that were eliminated for whatever reason, whether it was a grant and they did away with it, just so that we have that information?
Yep.
Because I think, I would, I know some salaries are covered by grants and they don't necessarily show up in the budget, but it's it's important, I think, for people to understand what's there and where it's coming from and what's not there, but also so we're talking about it realistically.
HR office will be happy to get that for you.
Thank you. We found another use for you, Matt. Sure.
I have a follow-up. Natasha, District 2, Precinct 2. Okay. See, told you. I'm still getting used to it. So you guys spoke about a leveled education. I'm a self-school parent, and I believe that we are the only non-Title I funded elementary school. How is your team ensuring that programs available at other elementary schools also doesn't mean that because I'm a self-school parent, my kids don't get any opportunity?
Great question. So it is a common thread throughout the entire 350 communities in the Commonwealth to have schools that are Title I with schools that aren't Title I. That's just a fact. You can go to any community this way, that way, behind me. That's just a fact. You get the Title I programs through either target assistance or school-wide, and those are grounded on data points for each of the schools. Second part of the question is the most important one, which is how are we going to make sure that we're providing that? Well, it depends on a lot of things. Number one, the funding, to make sure that that's still being provided. Title I is being provided through a specific detail. I just had this discussion actually with the principal this morning. I'm hoping that going forward, what we will be able to do outside of Title I, even with $3 million worth of issues, is to make sure that an intervention program at the South School is also completed and done, if you will, which is what we're doing with our Title I program in supporting students. So that basically going forward, that's what we're going to attempt to do. It means taking from something else to be able to do that. But clearly, our South parents and staff are suggesting that that needs to be a priority.
So you want to have an intervention program in every elementary school, not just based on Title I?
Right.
No. Title I may cover it in other schools, but you still want to have the same program in the South.
Yeah, the issue that it comes down to is this has been an issue that I've seen for all 17 years. I mean, you have to make those decisions around the best utilization of Title I funds, which, by the way, are being cut by 10% next year. So another part of the, trying to figure out the deficit. But going forward, I believe that the goal is going to be the principal is looking at making a recommendation to make some changes within staff that would allow for that type of programming to still take place at the South. It may be full-time, it may be part-time, it all depends on the numbers and the needs. That is our one of our underlying core issues is this issue of equity across the board, but it's not equitable when you have a school with 400 students and a school with 265 students and you have the same number of staff. Right, because if you have 140 more students in a school and you still have only 2 staff per school, that means that one school is already getting more services delivery, not in this particular case, but in other situations. So if you have 263 students in a school, X number are getting special education services, and you have 2 full-time SPED teachers with 263 and X number of students, you have more students at the Wilkins, or let's say the Daw with 400, and you still only have 2 special ed teachers. And you are trying to deliver services to more students. So the equity issue has been that we treat every school the same, but at the end of the day, it still has grounded in numbers and the needs of students. But I do believe that the issue of the interventions will be addressed as part of the planning for the South School.
Thank you. Lisa, did you? I saw you raise your hand.
Thank you, Lisa, Precinct 2. I just think it would be beneficial for the people at home to explain Title I.
Thank you. Actually, that would be I agree with that. So, Dr. Bayetta?
Yeah, so basic, fundamental, you've received federal assistance money to support students through and Mr. Ford, if you want to come up because you're the guru of this, you end up with targeted assistance or school-wide programming, and how you do it is a formula of how you get students to get services. So a lot of times when students already have an IEP, they're actually not on there, and he'll explain it even better than I can.
Hi, Jonathan Ford. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction. I'm also the Title I Coordinator and the Grants Person, and like a variety of other tasks. But our Title I funds are generated based on the poverty that occurs within the Stoughton Public Schools. So every student that we have that's living in poverty or categorized in that in terms of the Chapter 70 determination would generate funds for Title I. So once we get the funds aren't used to service kids in poverty. They're used to service students that have the greatest academic needs. So, and like the superintendent was speaking to, there's 2 different types of programs. There's targeted assistance and there's school-wide programs. We run the school-wide programs, which means a school has to have a minimum of 40% poverty rating in order for the school to qualify for the program. Now, specifically with respect to the South, the reason we don't run a Title I program at the South is because the poverty rating is, I think, about 32% as per the Title I calculation, which is separate from the Department of Ed calculation because it comes from the federal government. So, in our Title I schools, we run an intervention program which is specifically targeted to the kids with the greatest academic need. So we call it a Tier 3 intervention. So our groups for Target 1 interventionists, and the interventionists you mentioned earlier, are actually not funded by the town or Chapter 70. They're funded under Title I. So what we do is we identify the kids with the absolute greatest academic need, and we have an interventionist that can work one-on-one, up to 1-on-3 for a Tier 3 intervention, or for Tier 2, where the teacher works more in the curriculum or with the teacher for kids in groups of 3 to 5. So it's all specifically targeted, based on need, looking at the data and the information provided by the teachers. It's funded by the federal government. Our funding is generated based on our overall need, and then it's targeted to kids that need it the most. So I hope that helps.
All right, so the academic need, it's targeted on the academic need, so it does it, at that point, you're not checking who meets the poverty level and not, it's the school meets it.
It's although our kids that are classified as living in poverty generate the revenue, and that would be every student in the district, the funds are not targeted to those students specifically. It's targeted to kids that need help the most. So
Okay.
independent of
Now,
academic
do you
status.
fully fund these positions through Title I, or do you fund, like, let's say, 90% of the positions through Title I and then 10% through the budget?
Fully funded, absolutely.
Okay, because, I mean, there's always mixed feelings for that. If you fund them fully, they can only do Title I responsibilities.
Absolutely.
Which
yeah, and-
is,
and-
sometimes you may want them to do something else.
So that does in fact create problems to a certain extent. And I'll give you the best example, the principals. They can't use them for duties in their buildings. Their duties have to be related to their Title I responsibilities and not the general building need. But it's how the system works. And I mean, we have the opportunity to split fund, but it actually affects a lot of different things in terms of how we implement the programs. And we have found over time, much like special education grants, it's better to fully fund than try to do the split funding component, and it just creates a lot of mess logistically and administratively.
Do they get paid on the same salary as the teachers?
Yeah, they're a Unit A member, yeah, everything's the same, except for their responsibilities in terms of how we assign them.
All right, so their duties outside of their classroom.
Yeah, yep.
All right, thank you. That's curious. Jonna?
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. So I'm curious then, isn't our poverty level negatively impacted by the illegal children that are in the school?
I think we're done.
You don't need to answer that.
Madam Chair.
I did not mean to slam it quite so loud, so I apologize.
So you're again
Madam
infringing
Chair.
on my speech?
Madam Chair, I do think, I can't get into the debate of how you decide to run your meetings with the member, but I want to be very careful. As of today, I can assure the members of the Finance Committee that as it pertains to the shelter migrant situation, we do not have any students in this town attending our schools. That's one. Two, as it pertains to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts state law, I cannot ask a student or their family in terms of their status. I cannot ask about a student's legal status as a student in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, as the superintendent of schools, or any other employee of the Commonwealth. I can ask for residency, an address with supportive bills and so on. I can check to make sure that they're living at that address. But I cannot ask questions as it pertains to the legal status of any student, and that is per Commonwealth law.
Yeah, I didn't ask that.
Thank you. Becca?
I'm sorry, I feel like we're so close to the end. Do we qualify for E-rate or any other, I don't know if we are, do you know what E-rate is?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, we qualify. I have to tell you that those numbers are coming down every single day.
Could you tell us what E-rate is?
And it's basically taking a look at everything to do with tech stuff that we're part of, telephones and all of that stuff that we utilize.
On your cell phone bill, there's
So-
a US FCS, I believe, fee that everybody pays into, and it's called E-rate, and basically it goes based on poverty levels. And so it used to go based on free and reduced lunch data.
Correct.
And then it allowed for like networking, wireless, that type of thing. So basically school districts, it would equalize technological access.
And allow for us to be able to, so, I don't know, probably 17 years ago when I started as a superintendent, literally it was a six-figure number.
Yes.
And it would allow for us to work with those families and put technology support them. And I mean, it was, a lot of that has gone away.
Okay.
Just not available. Or you're doing a direct payment fee with whatever product you're using, the money is just going there to pay for it. And blah, blah, blah. So you're not seeing that direct service providing like you used to literally 17 years ago.
Okay, thank you.
You have one comment, then unless there's any other comments, we'll move on to the school department articles.
Natasha Gomes, Precinct 2. One of the larger budget item increases was transportation. I'm not familiar with Stoughton's process, but I know in the city of Boston, they do offer vouchers for transportation. Do we not go after the state to fund transportation for those qualifying students?
We do
or is
not.
it something different? I don't know.
There is no voucher system within the yellow bus process. And then within special education, it's required that we pay for it. So all we can do, so it's in some ways I can address it this way. There is not a voucher system. There are the regulations with the 2 miles and all that stuff. However, we do work with families. This year alone, I've worked with a number of families. I have been granted permission through the process from the school committee that I can work with the family. I've had families try to do a payment plan even. We've had families move in and we don't charge them the full fee. We take a look at the quote per day charge and just charge them for the rest, but there is no voucher system within that process.
Thank you. Okay. Dawn?
On busing, I know that a lot of hubbub that I heard about is that a lot of parents didn't sign up on time. Do you put it out there for the parents to sign, or is there a cutoff or a deadline that if they don't sign by that time, the child can't get on the bus?
This year alone, there were 28 notifications to families around the yellow bus transportation. I'll leave it at that.
Yes, I saw several of them.
I saw 28 of them.
Okay. Any other comments on the school budget for now? If anyone on the committee wants any additional information, just email me and I'll forward the requests along. I know we had a lot of information tonight on this budget, so it might take a while to sink in and figure out if you have any questions. So, all right, we're going to move to the next article, which is under Article 21 on the annual town meeting, which is school department capital, which I am. Thank you. Yep. So, this is for the annual town meeting. There's also one on the special town meeting, all right? So, Article 21, School Department Capital, which is vote to raise, appropriate, transfer, whatever, to get money to purchase the following. Item 1, exterior and interior door replacements at O'Donnell Middle School, estimated in the amount of $230,000. Item number 2, smart panel projector updates, estimated with the price of $436,330. And then item 3, Wilkins Elementary School Grant Decarbonization Project TBD. And the total amount of the article is estimated at $666,330. And right now, I believe that the proposed funding source is free cash. So if you could explain that, and then would love a number for item 3 or have it removed, because I'm not going to recommend anything on a TBD basis.
That was just to meet a deadline. Item 3 will be withdrawn, Madam Chair. Item 3, the Wilkins Elementary School Grant Decarbonization Project. We currently have $2.7 million of decarbonization that will be taking place at the Wilkins School. We have gone after yet another grant to complete the project, which is around $6 million, and that's why you have that TBD there. we believe it's going to, the reason why it's withdrawn is the grant's not coming in until May. We don't even know if we're going to get it. And so this could be, we're going to complete everything that we can for $2.7 million and then take a look at other grants and/or eventually asking for an article to complete the project.
Could you explain what decarbonization is?
Yeah, it's basically you're looking at heating and ventilation of the Wilkins Elementary School, which would make it your third school. So now the DAR is completed, the Gibbons is completed, and the Wilkins would be partially completed. In this particular case, what we would be doing is putting units into every classroom and then closing out all of the other older units that are in there so that you're getting fresh air and in terms of AC and as well as heat. And then the only remaining thing that will be done there would be the steam and the boilers. That would be the last part. So it's literally, it's making your third building of what will be 4 elementary schools as up-to-date as possible. New windows, new doors at all of those elementary schools, and new roofs have already been addressed.
Or preschool?
Correct.
Okay.
Item 1 speaks for itself. It's interior and exterior doors replacement at OMS. You will see, number 1, if you go to our webpage, we have a facilities conditions assessment that town meeting provided funding for. This is all of our buildings except for the south. This is all on our webpage. This is a line item, literally 20-year plan for capital improvement of our schools. And then the second one that will go up soon, which also will go to, we're just trying to figure out how to do this because it's such a long, this is the actual itemization of every single school's needs, from HVACs to windows to walkways to parking lots to you name it. It's listed on this with costs, so that at the next superintendent over the next 3 to 5 years would literally just be doing an upgraded cost to any of the items that need to take place. Furthermore, it's itemized by year so that we know if we know we have things that we can wait on, it's already noted under that year. So let's say it's something that we say doesn't need to be done until 3035, it's noted under 3035. The only thing you would have to do within the maybe 12 to 18 months is get an updated cost from what the cost says here.
So would those be, are those going to be included within the budget, or are we looking at articles for all of those?
So what will happen is our capital plan will move into Mark's capital plan on the town side, and it'll be its own, so it carries through, and then we just have to, every year, the school committee working with the town has to figure out which ones to go after.
Okay.
So that we're all talking about, I mean, my goal would be one capital plan for the community, but that's going to be the wishes of those that.
And do they include like building replacements and major renovations to buildings?
All major renovations, and then our outside is the OMS situation.
Right, I know that, but I like to be, I think there needs to be plans, even if they're not going to happen in my lifetime.
Yep. Well, this goes through until 2045, of which I will be old. I'm hoping to still be around. Item number 1 is literally looking at door replacement at OMS. OMS is our big monster right now over the next few years. It will be where we spend most of our capital funds in order to get to the initial plan of building a new middle school, potentially as the high school is being paid off and is off the taxpayer, if you will. The only way to do that is literally to spend some money now through free cash in order to maintain that building as we can, because it is the building now that's struggling the most. Item number 2 is always the one that's a killer, and the reason why it's a killer is when you buy smart panels, the projectors for classrooms, they all go at the same time. So literally, that's what you're seeing here. So this is a K-5 implementation.
The smart boards?
Yes, smart boards, as we used to call them, the smart panels now. And the idea is, as we have a bunch of them that are already failing, we know the end of life for these are coming. If the money was tight on free cash, this could be done in 2 fiscal years. You could take 50% of that 436 in year 1, and then do the remaining. The only problem is usually the price will go up a little bit. You could probably add another 5 to 7% on the cost, but still, if the money isn't here now, the school department is willing to be a partner in making sure that it works in that way. The other thing too is we've done a really good job, thanks to town meeting, with interior and exterior door replacements at all of our elementary schools. Right, we did them as projects. accelerated repair projects, and we've also done them as we-go projects when there's been free cash available with capital. So literally, the middle school is the monster of where you're going to be spending some money over the next 5 to 10 years, and you see that in some of our other requests this year already.
All right, Heidi?
I'm going to put my Winter Guard mom hat on. For the exterior and interior door replacement, is it possible to get the main door at the OMS where the ramp is to widen that? And the reason I ask is because when Winter Guard gets done with the competition and they bring the floor back in, it's a disaster and the floor gets damaged. And that means that we may or may not be able to use the other side of the floor. And if we just had 5-6 inches wider of a door, we wouldn't have to try to, these young girls, like, thank goodness they're strong, trying to tip it sideways and then just squeezing it through. And it's just painful.
So I know
witness.
exactly what you're talking about, because I've actually gone down there because of complaints, and it's not within the scope of this project because it's a slightly bigger project than we think, because of the actual opening itself. We probably need to do some engineering because we have some concerns around the walls and so on and so forth. So what we did with this interior-exterior door is we utilized our safety report. It's not here because we don't publicize it, but we do have, thanks to town meeting, a comprehensive safety report around all of our buildings and technology and all of that. And so anything to do with these types of items are items that are coming off of our safety report through our capital plan as a request. Sorry.
Do you know if that's going to be something that could happen down the line?
I'm
I know that it even happens over at the high school. They have to walk all the way around to the back of the building from the field because that was a huge design flaw.
I can't address the design flaw, but I can tell you that I've been personally to the OMS situation. I know exactly what you're talking about. I'll make a note of it to see if we can prioritize it and see what would the cost be to prioritize it. It's not in this request, but that doesn't mean that it couldn't become part of this request, because it's just, we went with this idea of interior, exterior door. So if that becomes a priority and it's within the finances, we'll do it. You bet.
Joel?
I just have a real quick question on the doors. Before I do, Joe, I'd like to ask the status of 2 projects that we've approved in the past, both of which have to do with new entry vestibules at the Gibbons and the Daw. Could you tell us what the status of those are?
Those are completed.
Okay, so they're all complete and done?
Correct.
Okay, I wasn't sure. Thank you.
Yep.
The doors for the middle school, the exterior doors, that include any electronics in terms of?
Yeah, so any replacement, any current electronic replacement will also take place, but we do have potentially one area where we want to add an electronic situation or an electrical situation, and that's part of the project.
As part of the budget? Because I don't see any backup here for the doors.
Yeah, and I'll get that to you. That's
fine. That's all right. I'll take your word for it.
The biggest issue that we're having with it is we're seeing we're seeing a slight increase already since we put this together that we didn't account for, and things are coming at a higher cost than we anticipated. How's
Well,
that?
I'm familiar with that problem.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Ben, sorry. I keep pressing the buttons, and then I forget if I've turned it on or off. So
Through you, Madam
I
Chair.
apologize.
On the subject of OMS, given that we're putting money into this facility, will we be given a feasibility study on the option of doing a base level renovation on the building when the time comes?
I can assure you that that will be required, but there's no way that MSBA is going to support a renovation addition of that project. The fundamentals of it, it's never been built as a middle school. It was built as a junior high. That's number one. Number two, its core is hurting, but you still have to go through that process. The idea of a new building MSBA project requires that you look at reno add, just reno add, and then new. Those are the 3 options. You always have to do all 3 as part of the process.
Okay. On my next question, on those smart projectors, is it just one that's failed, or is there multiple ones that have failed?
So typically what happens, I hate to say it this way, let's say you buy 40, within 2 years, 18 months to 24 months, you start to see every single one of them go. And they last, I mean, these are not 3 or 5 years old, right? We're working these out 10 years. But what starts to happen is they just start to go, and there are no part replacements for these because the company's just not giving you part replacements. You got to go new. So that's what's happening.
Okay, and this is throughout all different schools, and then
It's our elementary schools that we're targeting. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Dawn?
On these smart panels, do they get recycled?
Great question. Yes, we do everything that we can to recycle, and actually just today's Wednesday? Yeah, Monday, I received yet another company that's looking to do recycling at limited to no cost to us. So, yes, thanks. Great question.
All right. How long do smart panels are expected to last?
It's usage, right? That's number one. Number two, I mean, we're going out 10 years in most of them. Their lifespan is all about usage. So at the elementary level, I mean, we do a lot of kids standing up, going up, tracing things, and so on and so forth. So it's all about the usage.
So like if we're using it at elementary level, we could expect new ones to last like 5, 6 years?
Yeah, I would say you can easily go out 7 to 8 years.
All right, thank you.
And we've gone out 10 and more with these.
Any other questions from anyone in the audience, members of the committee? Cynthia?
Cynthia Walsh, 1096 Park Street. This is probably beyond the scope on the doors. Organizational town meeting is held in the cafeteria at the middle school. The only way I can get in is the main entrance and then walk the length of the building to get to the cafeteria. Now, your custodians have been princes as far as helping the old girl make the journey. It's not just a mobility issue. I have congestive heart failure. I can only move for just a certain length of time. Has there been any thought to putting some sort of ramp, even temporary, at the door nearest the cafeteria so I can relax a little?
I have not thought about temporary ramp, but now that you mentioned that, I just wrote it down, and I will be happy to get back to you on that. That might be something we can look at. I think there's going to be some scope issues with a temporary ramp in a public building. I don't know if we can just do it for the next 10 years, if you will.
Well, the next 10 years I'll be 88, so the chances of my still being in town meeting are slim and none. So
Well,
anything you can do for, I'm certainly not the only person with a disability that tries to access the middle school. And if people are coming in that way, other than me, yeah, even the guy delivering cookies or whatever might appreciate the ramp being closer to the cafeteria so he can just wheel it up.
I'll make note of it. I just did, and I will make sure that I get back to you. Thank you. Great question.
Are there any other questions from members of the audience on Article 21? All right, the next item on the agenda is Article 26, which is really not a school article, but I just put it on here briefly in case you had any, where the Dennison complex is next to the middle school.
Yeah. I'm just speaking as the superintendent. Article 26 has a request at the Dennison Athletic Complex, which I fully support as your superintendent of schools, and if I was a town meeting member, I'd vote for it. I just want to go on the record, for the sake of information only, that there's going to have to be a decision down the road about where to build a new middle school. And the likelihood is that a new middle school would go close to the high school, and where these fields are in return, the MSBA project would have new fields being built on where the current middle school is. I just want to enter that into the record. I fully support all of this. It's not my business, but I do think that 10 years from now, I don't want to see my name being blamed for it.
Thank you. All right, that's really, I just wanted to get that information, the courtesy. Next, we will move on to the special town meeting, we have Article 11, which is the deposit to a special education stabilization fund, which I believe we're currently looking at $500,000. Does anyone have any questions or comments, or, about the special education stabilization account that you'd like to ask? And perhaps somebody could explain what the special education stabilization account is?
The current funding in that stabilization account is $500,000. This will bring it up in talking to the town manager, and I thank him for working this. It would make this bottom line $1 million. The purpose of the stabilization fund would be for those special circumstances that we've had to address, and during difficult budgets, it would be an opportunity for us not to have to make cuts elsewhere, if you will, and go back through that process of the select board, through the school committee, the select board, to be able to utilize those funds for that specific one-time situation that is an emergency, for lack of a better word. So I do not see us utilizing it in the current fiscal year and maintaining that $500,000 that's in there. So this would allow for those funds to be utilized when those special circumstances come up. And if I remember correctly, I believe that's a vote of the select board.
I think it's a joint vote of the select board, of the select board and the school committee.
Recommendation, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's unlike other stabilization funds, and it's designed for like those $300,000 placements that come in the middle of the year that you weren't planning on, right?
Yeah, it's designed for literally those emergency situation funding sources that you could not have accounted for during the process. So I can think of really scary things like transportation and also tuitions.
Okay. Questions from members of the committee? Arnie?
I just want to make sure I've heard this correctly. You already have $500,000 in that fund, and you want to add another 500. Is that correct?
We are supporting the recommendation of adding another $500,000 from free cash into that stabilization account.
So there's already $500,000 there now.
Yeah, there's been 2 deposits 2 different times. One was done last year, and one was done three or 4 fiscal years ago, which actually started the stabilization account.
Thank you.
Jonna?
Through you, Madam Chair, I'm against using the free cash. That's just my sentiment.
Thank you. Other questions from members of the committee? I have a couple, I'm not a little confused. I know you said during the budget part you were using like circuit breaker funds. Could you explain what those are?
Yeah,
and how you use them?
Yeah, so circuit breaker is a mathematical concept where I'm just going to use general numbers for the sake of argument. So you have a student who goes out of district and it costs $100,000 tuition. Circuit breaker will take the first, it's roughly 50,000, it's about 48. The first 50,000 you have to pay for. The remaining 50,000 you can potentially get 75% of it, up to 75% of it back, and it's set into this revolving account called circuit breaker that comes back to the school department that can only be used for the purposes of special education. And it's utilized literally for special education costs out of district in most cases, and or transportation. So if you think about it, you're never getting 100% back of anything, and the first 50,000 you're paying. And you take that for every case and situation, and you're getting those funds back for the next fiscal year.
Do we have any balances on those accounts?
We're about to get very close to zero this year.
Okay.
Because of some of the issues that we've had to address, and we're hoping that we're only hitting a few bucks of it for next year.
All right. Could you like get me some like brief records of the past couple of years on that?
I can.
So as to the stabilization account, that would be separate from this.
That is correct.
Okay.
Circuit breaker is literally receiving funding that you're already using within your operational money back into that account and then utilized over and over until it runs out. Once a student is gone from something like an out-of-district situation, then the money is gone as well. The only benefit that you ever get is every once in a while you get that student that like graduates or ages out in December, and you've received some of those fundings, not all of it for the remainder.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on this article? Any other questions or comments from members of the committee or the public? Oh, all right. Now we will move to special town meeting, Article 18, School Department Capital, in which we are looking at a grand total of $179,000 for the following. Item 1, classroom window shade replacement at O'Donnell Middle School for $45,000. Item 2, additional and replacement AED boxes for $13,000. Item 3, additional card access and vestibule updates for $50,000. Item 4, replacement of rooftop units at O'Donnell Middle School for $35,000, and replacement of interior decking at O'Donnell Middle School for $36,000. And I believe everything is going to be funded through free cash. At least that's the current proposal. So if you could.
Sure. So each of these is noted in either is noted in our internal safety report as issues that we need to address. The window shade replacement at OMS is exactly that. If you take a look at window shades, some of you may not think of it this way, but the fact is, at the end of the day, window shades are both a health issue, but they're also a huge safety issue. Over at OMS, as you're coming into the building, in the front of the building, you see that we need to replace window shades throughout that building. We'll be choosing the areas that are in the worst case scenario. The AED boxes is exactly that. Those are the boxes that are out that we use for emergencies. We've been replacing them. We're now going out more of a bulk group in order to replace them and add to areas of our district where we think it would be a safety benefit. The card access and the vestibule updates are exactly that. Card access is literally how we get into our buildings. We're adding a few. We have a situation right now where we have to have a key access with kindergarten students, and it's a very poor idea to do that. If we have the card access, it's quicker, safer to get into buildings, eliminates the keys. The vestibule updates are somewhat minor in our schools, but we have some safety concerns in our safety report. I'm not going to get into a lot of detail out of our security report, I should say, but there's some concerns around the idea that the vestibules aren't as, quote, tight as they should be for security purposes. The rooftop units at OMS, this goes back to Joe Baeta being on the school committee. This is the modular classrooms at OMS. They are just falling like you wouldn't believe. They are original from 2000, so they've had a pretty good life.
Yeah, 25 years, 26 years.
Yeah, but the last 2 fiscal years, we've had to find the money, and we just want to get the replacement done. And then the exterior decking at OMS, that is also part of the modular classrooms, and that's also an emergency exit for that area, and it's fallen apart. And so, again, it's both in our capital plan and it's also in our security as, needing an update. So.
Okay, thank you. Members of the committee, any questions? Heidi?
If these are considered safety issues, how much of this could be fulfilled using a grant, giving us the possibility of not having to spend the entire $179,000? I'm specifically looking at the AED boxes.
Yeah, if I could find the grants. So I think I know what you're talking about in terms of, in the past, we've been able to go after AED grants. They're just not, they're so competitive, they're not out there. And what we're trying to do right now is we have a couple of them that are literally shot. They're not working. And we have concerns, as you probably know, with all of our student activities. Our athletic trainers got them, coaches have got them. What we're trying to do is maintain what we have. As we have here at Town Hall and all the other buildings, and that's all it is. I think it's 2 additional, if I remember correctly off the top of my head, and then the other ones are all replacements because of age. Sorry.
Any other questions from members of the committee? Questions or comments from members of the audience? All right, I am not seeing any. I would love to entertain a motion to continue these public hearings.
May I make a motion, please?
Madam Chair,
Yep.
if I may, just a brief, this will be my last time that I'm before the committee during my time here. I just want to thank those of you that we've agreed to disagree. I appreciate the time and an effort, because I know the amount of weeks and hours that you spend in here away from your own families to do this for the town of Stoughton. So whatever you decide and how things go and so on and so forth, I just want to say thank you for what you do for the town of Stoughton, and thank you for being professional with me during my time that I was here with you. Thank you.
Thank you,
You're
Joe.
welcome. Thank you, and enjoy retirement. We know where your summer plans will be. It will not be at summer school or
I'll be
any
working.
Can I make a motion? I'd like to
Please.
move to continue the public hearings for the annual town meeting on May 4th and the special town meeting on May 4th to Monday, March 30th, 2026, 7 o'clock p.m. at Town Hall.
All right, so the motion was made to continue the public hearings for the annual and special town meeting for all articles to Monday, March 30th, 2026 at 7 p.m. And it was made by Joel, seconded by Heidi. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Abstained? We'll go with, it's a unanimous vote. Just for the public to know, most of the meeting on Monday is more, we won't be hearing any new business. We will be basically either just mostly discussing current articles and stuff. We may close out parts of the public hearing so we can vote on articles. All right. I would love a motion to adjourn. I really would. Dawn has made a motion to adjourn, and Becca has seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed can stay. Good night. Thank you, everybody.